So I thought I'd start documenting each day of the Quiet One process and to keep you up to date with what's going on in a quite concise way. And basically what's happened in the last week has been very important. So the album, this is a self-titled album called Quiet One. The artist is Quiet One, the album's called Quiet One, just because I'm not very good at album names, and it was originally going to be called Out of Sight, but the more I progressed with the lyrics of the album, it just didn't really seem to fit. The kind of theme of Out of Sight didn't seem to fit, so I think Quiet One is far more pertinent. And as I said, this week's been important. The album was finished about 11 days ago now, and what I did was, I'm in the studio now and I have a project open in front of me, satellites actually, and basically what happened is I got each mix to a place where I thought, this is a good place to kind of to leave it, because what I don't want to do is do the last mix for this album, and unfortunately I can't tell you who's mixing this album because there's a conflict of interest because of some previous work that I've done. And it's a real shame because he's... Okay, it's a he, that's all I'll give you. He's mixed one of the most seminal albums of my life. And he's not an amazingly well-known master mixer or anything like that. He's not a kind of Dave Pensado or Chris Lord-Alge. Sorry. And he's not one of those. But he's a true kind of unspoken hero in the production realm. And another clue is that he's based in Ireland. And so what happened was I got each of the Quiet One songs to a kind of the furthest that I could take it in, not the furthest, but to a good point in the studio to kind of get them all to a kind of where it's really enjoyable to listen to. It could be an album version in the studio, but I didn't. The whole premise of this whole second mix is that I didn't want to be the last set of ears on the album, because what happens when you're writing an album like this is that how many songs is it? I have to look behind me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's actually 13 songs because there's a little kind of thing in the middle, and 13 songs is quite a lot to listen to, and the difficulty comes because these albums, these songs, some of them are 2 years old. One of them is about 11 years old, one of the songs, and what happens is that you just listen to them too much, and in your mind's ear, you have a mind's eye, your mind's ear. That's quite a good thing, actually, your mind's ear. But in your mind's ear, you kind of expect it to do certain things. And so, when you come to mix these songs, after you've recorded them, edited them, well, there's no editing on this album, but after you've recorded them and, written them and all that stuff, it's kind of, I don't know, it just feels like you've over-listened to them. And so I think that fresh set of ears for that very last hurdle is so important, especially for an album this important to me, because I'm not sure if I'll ever write an album this important to me again. I'm not even sure there'll be a second Quiet One album. These are the songs. It's strange because, I'm being very disjointed, and I'm very much like that. My mind is not what it used to be, maybe. And this album is kind of all of the songs that I wanted to hold back from other projects. Not all of them, not all of the songs, but a lot of them are those songs that were too special to go on other projects, or were too unique or individual to fit with other projects. And this is the only home that they'll ever have. And I didn't just want this to be a kind of collection of B-sides, because it's really not that. These are songs that were specifically held back so that they could be used in an album kind of scenario. But as I say, one of them's 11 years old. I think the second oldest is 7, and then the rest of them are very recent, like the last 2 or 3 years, which is quite recent for songwriters. And of the 13, I think 6 or 7 of them were created within that 2-week period at my old house with the old studio, and were created very, very seamlessly in that 2-week ultra creative period that you saw on the Songs by Benn channel. And so we're here at this moment, and what's happened is that I've sent these songs, and they're huge, huge files, and I sent these songs to Ireland, via Philadelphia to Ireland, because someone else had to do something quite magical on a few of the songs, and then straight to Ireland. And what's happened is that there was a slight issue with some of the sample rate transfers, so I'm having to go back into just a couple of 4 songs and re-export a couple of bass parts, which were basically the whole album was captured in 192 kilohertz, which is like 10K if you think of video. It's like the ultimate quality that you can have. And what happened was I didn't sync Pro Tools' internal clock when I was doing it for a couple of things. Well, I say I didn't, Boop didn't, but Boop didn't even know about that at the time. I forgot to tell him. And so there was a sync issue with a few. There wasn't actually a sync issue in my studio, but when it went to these other studios, there seemed to be that the bass, specifically the bass, was playing out of time to the other things, so I needed to figure that out, and it just happened to be a sample rate issue. You get it in video as well, where obviously the frame rate is incorrect, so it plays either fast or slow. Same thing, it's just audio version of that. So I'm having to resolve that, and that will be the kind of finale. Then I'll send back those extra issues, and then it'll be mixed in Ireland by this guy, and then it'll be mastered at Abbey Road. And I'm very, very lucky because one of my family members is incredibly talented when it comes to the artistic side, in terms of painting and things like that. And so we'll be getting some. I kind of drew up some concept art. In fact, I gave it to Steve, so it went. I know it went onto the Hurt Records, what's it called, Twitter, and it's on there as like a picture or photo, whatever you call it. And those were my kind of preliminary drawings for the artwork for the album, but they're going to be redone in a really cool way, and I can't wait to see that, because some of these songs are dreams, and those dreams were actually dreams I had, and so or daydreams. Sync is a very prominent one, White is a very prominent one, there's a few other songs that have specific dreams, and so I wanted to actually get those mental images out of my head and onto the artwork for the album. So that would be really cool to actually see those dreams come to life, which is amazing for me, and I really look forward to that. Anyway, I thought I'd do this every time I come out of the studio, just to keep you abreast of where we are with the album. And there's a lot of moving pieces with something this big, and this isn't a kind of one of those albums that we can just chuck out. It's same with Two Down at the moment, because we're recording everything to tape with Two Down. It's really difficult to kind of just get an album out, but that's slowly working its way down. Diplomat's going to be the next thing to come out, I think, after Quiet One. Then the Two Lost Boys, although they come out at a very similar time. All really soon, all within the next 2 or 3 months, but it's a very, very manic time at my end, just trying to get everything kind of perfect, because with Quiet One it has to be perfect or I don't want to release it, because it's been years and years of having these really special songs to me, and I don't want to just skimp at the end and just kind of try and save time just to get them out there, and that's it. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and I'll try and do these one of these every single time that I leave the studio. Thanks guys, bye. So today's been quite eventful. As you know, I'm dealing with a mixing engineer in Ireland, and as I mentioned in yesterday's audio blog, I can't really call it a vlog, can you, because it's not a video, but as I mentioned yesterday, there's been some issues with sync, not the song sync, but syncing issues with specifically an organ and bass guitars across 4 or 5 songs. And those issues have now been resolved, but it's hard to explain the issues today because you haven't heard the album, but I'll try and explain the premise behind the idea to begin with, and then I'll explain the issue. So what I wanted to do, I had a very specific budget for this album, which is now eaten up, and the very last bit of that budget, I was either going to get a guy in here to play some brass kind of stuff, but then I thought, it doesn't really fit with the kind of vibe of the album. I didn't think that brass was specifically something that was needed, and kind of it would have been one of those kind of, you include everything, including the kitchen sink, just to have it on there, and I didn't really want to do that. So I thought instead of that, I'd fill up my car with petrol and drive to all of the places that that these songs originated from, as far as I could remember at least. And I'm pretty good with my memory on the whole, so I think I've got every single place covered, which is quite good. So unfortunately, because I've moved a few times in the last 5 years. We originally lived up in Chelsea, and then we moved down to down Brighton way, and now we don't live in Brighton anymore. So it's quite a big area to kind of keep a hold of and keep a track of. But so what I did is I took my portable. I don't even know what this thing's called. What is this thing called? It's called a Tascam. I don't know what it's called. What's it called? It's like a portable recorder that I use. It's a DR100MK2 linear PCM recorder, and the only reason I use that is because it can record in 96 kilohertz, which is what sorry, I'm just bending down so I can hold man. And it's gone off again. Damn you! I use that to record demos for songs and ideas, just to get them out of my head, basically to defrag my mind. And so I took that with me, and took some nice mics, because you can plug nice mics into that portable recorder. It has 2 XLR inputs on the bottom, so I can plug my Neumanns in. So I took both of my Neumann KM187s with me, a stereo pair, and I took them to 8 different places, because there's 13 songs on the album, and some of those overlap in terms of the place that I originally kind of created them. The most common place for me to go is a seaside area, a place called Bexhill, which is absolutely nowhere near where I live, which was the kind of furthest point that I had to get to. But my nan died 5 years ago, and for some reason at that time I found solace in the kind of noise of the ocean and all of that stuff, because I was very close to my grandmother, and very close, and it was devastating to me. And so I had to kind of find a place. You have those places that you go that you can just kind of just turn off your mind for a bit and kind of just go into standby, which occasionally you need. That's the place where I go. It's just Bexhill. It's a place called Bexhill, and so on a sailboat, unbelievably, the ocean. Although that did not inspire sailboats at all. Sailboats about a very specific time, but it's got kind of crashing waves very quietly in the background all the way through the song. And what else was done? I think White was there as well. And then the most famous one in terms of what you might know is a place called the Top of the World, which is a place called Ditchling Beacon, which is kind of on the border of Brighton, going slightly north of Brighton. But that's a place I still occasionally go to, because it's good for mixing, because some days it's just so quiet up there, you can just sit there for hours and I can listen to my tracks back, kind of make mixing notes and stuff like that. And that's easy. Another place, it's quite far away, but it's a lake that, again, it's quite peaceful, and I find it very easy to ride there. And those are the kind of most obvious places. I mean, you'll hear them. The top of the world just sounds windy and very big and open. And the ocean obviously sounds like the ocean, so that might give you a clue. But there are slightly less obvious places. One of them being in the hallway of a block of flats that I used to live in Chelsea, up in London. And literally just recording the inside of a hallway. And you probably won't know it's the inside of a hallway, because what I've realised is that without a sound emanating from a place, it just sounds like a silent place. For instance, another of the songs was created in a big church near where I live. The original idea came from when I was sitting in this church that was like 11 years ago. And what I found is that it just sounds like nothing. You can't hear. How do you hear a church? You can't really, unless you go "Rah!", which I didn't really want to do, to get that huge resonating reverby kind of pre-delay. You without that, you can't really tell where you are. But the idea was there, and I wanted to make sure that every song had in the background of it the place where it was created. So even if you can't hear it because there's nothing particularly going on, I just wanted those to. I just wanted it to be where it came from. The one song I'm really excited about is Satellites, because there's that bit that goes ah, and what's really cool about that is that was recorded in a vacuum chamber at Abbey Road, which is really, really cool. It's like a kind of completely isolated room, but it creates this kind of really, really tight. It is technically a reverb. It's like how to explain it? You know when you get an echo where it goes ah. It's like that, where all the ahs are on top of each other, like they're immediately stacked on each other. So it becomes like this almost like quadruple voice thing. It just sounds really odd. And it took me absolutely ages to get the perfect take, because, believe it or not, it's quite difficult to go ah, because what I didn't want to do is add vibrato to that bit, because what you can do to make it easy is go ah, ah, and you add that kind of tiny bit of vibrato, but I wanted it to be really specific notes, like ah, ah, so without the kind of shaky vibrato, because vibrato is cheating. It's kind of a way to extend your ability to hold a note by faking your ability to hold a note. I know a lot of people who use vibrato to cover up the fact that they are fucking awful at singing, and that sounds really weird because people like Pavarotti would use it. But of course, it's very, very, very difficult to hold one solid note for that long. And if you hold a note like once you've got instrumentation in the background, it starts to sound like a kind of sine wave. It doesn't sound like a kind of vocal phrase. So adding vibrato always keeps your mind's ear, which I'm now using that phrase permanently, keeps your mind's ear on the fact that that's a vocal and not another instrument. But I don't like vibrato because of recent events. I was working with a mixing engineer who was mixing an album for a band, and in fact I wrote a blog about this on her a while back. It was about autotune, and that band is a very popular British band who kind of mix classical, hard rock, anything up to hip hop nowadays as well. And they've just done a kind of dubstep influence, few songs on the last album, and the new album has like reggae influences and kind of breakbeat influences as well. It's very different. And but we were discussing this whole idea about vibrato, and of course vibrato is such a staple of singing now, but it wasn't always a staple of singing. It's the last 100 years has really created this time where vibrato is being used. And, you know, the jazz singers back even in the 20s and 40s, well, not jazz, but but the 40s, 50s, and going into the 60s really pushed the idea of vibrato to hold notes. And so it sounds weird because when you take that vibrato away from a note, you're suddenly very exposed because, you know, I listen to people like Willie Mason as a really good example in this case, because he is an extraordinarily talented person. He is one of the best songwriters on earth and probably will forever be known as one of the best songwriters on earth. And he isn't that well known, but to songwriters, he's like the staple of songwriting. He's just very, very good at what he does. And he's a very good singer. I say he's a very good singer. His vocals really take you out of a comfort zone when you listen to Willie Mason. He has this ability to make you listen to his voice because it sounds odd. Now I do that. I try and do that a lot by using lyrics that you wouldn't quite expect, or instead of using what was I doing earlier on the song Sync, without using Americanisms. So instead of having something, I can't remember the word was, instead of having something rhyme and putting a kind of American twang on it, saying it in a rather British accent, again, puts you in the spotlight because they weren't expecting. Oh, it's really difficult to explain that point, but I'll go back to Willie Mason because that point is very difficult to explain. Willie Mason is a very talented, as I said, very talented guy, and he sings almost entirely without vibrato, and it's very challenging to listen to him. He sounds like he's singing out of tune. Point taken, he probably is at times singing out of tune because without vibrato, it's fucking hard to sing like that. It really is really difficult. I can't think of many people who do it without vibrato now. And I wanted to make this album almost entirely without vibrato because I don't know, I just wanted to push myself a bit to do something a bit interesting. You know, I was a singer originally. I used to do this as that was what I did. I was a singer in fuck knows how many bands over the years. And then we toured a lot and my voice got ripped apart. And the last 6 months has been me trying to get my voice back because that's very difficult to get your voice back when you tour. When I had toured and been in some bands that were too heavy to they were just too heavy in general, and you know, you do lose your voice, and getting it back is more difficult than it sounds because there's this kind of I've been to a vocal teacher, well, not that recently, but fairly recently, and I have this kind of inability to hit this kind of intermediate ground between a very soft vocal, like I ask myself questions, and then it's either that or I ask myself questions, but there's nothing in between those two. My voice kind of craps out when I go in between those two velocities. For some reason, the grit becomes too much, and I can't sing between those velocities, but I can sing really, really loud. I can sing absolute falsettos. I can sing fairly low, and I can scream in a kind of intermediate to low range. Not very good at falsetto screaming, but I can't do that kind of. That was really quiet, the first one. The second one was fairly intermediate, so I want it kind of almost that quiet, but I can't get it for some reason. My voice is fucked, and that's a shame. Why was I saying all this? This was all coming around to something. Oh yeah, of course. Sorry. You have to apologise. My mind is fucked. As my voice is. My mind and my voice are fucked. That's the quote. Benn down. What was I going to say? Can't remember what I was going to say then. Oh yeah, the whole idea of the kind of background. What do I call them? It's on the board. Transitional soundscapes. There was one that was a slight issue because Am I going to mention which song it was? Do you know that song? No, you don't know that song, so I'm not going to name which one it was, and it won't matter anyway. But there was a really cool thing I did when I was mentioning that church. The song that was written in that church, I decided to do. I did the original version in the studio, and that sounded really cool. Like, it just sounded like a normal song. Then when I went to record in that church with the handy recorder thing, whatever it's called, I decided to do the entire vocal in the church. And it sounded just mentally huge. And it kind of didn't fit the song too well. So what I ended up doing, which was really, really cool, was taking... And I've done this with loads of songs now. Satellites has this on with the vocals and the guitar. What else did I do? Take Me Away. There's a few songs that have this on it. And was like 9 of the songs have it on it now. But what I did is I took my studio tape and 2 HHB speakers with me today. And mic'd up the speakers in the church, literally with a microphone. Quite a nice one. Which is a Neumann U47, I think it's called. Is that what this is called? I can't see the back of it. I think it's called a U47. And recorded my voice coming out of the speakers into the church, and then recorded that back in. So what I have now is a kind of layer of my voice underneath the studio version of my voice, which has an actual church reverb. Like, it's literally a church, which is just weird, so weird, because reverbs, it doesn't really matter, but kind of, I hate digital reverbs, ones that are in the computer. They never ever sound like what they're supposed to sound like. So really, the best way of getting what you want it to sound like is to go and record that thing that you want to sound like, the thing that you want reverb on. You record that in the space unto which you want to record, and have the sound of which that recorded words must fight. Words! No. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. But that was really cool. And so all of those amendments have now been sent to my buddy in Ireland. Anyway, I don't know if I've got any more tea left. I don't have any more tea. Is this one? Got 2 cups in here. Both are empty. Mate, this world isn't what it used to be. Mate. So the mixing part of the Quiet One album is underway at the moment, so I thought I'd shed a bit of light into what I'm expecting and what I'm looking for when it comes to the mix. So for those of you who aren't aware of mixing, and there's no real reason that you should be, it's at its basic form, it's balancing all the instruments. So if you've got a drum kit, obviously that's incredibly loud, and say you've got a kazoo or a harmonica that needs to reach the volume of a drum kit, obviously that couldn't be done without mixing, where you could either turn down the drum kit to kind of shed more light onto the harmonica, or you could turn up the lights. I'm being metaphorical. You could turn up the volume of the harmonica to make it louder than the drum kit. It's additive and subtractive volume and mixing techniques. They've been around for years. And the guy that is mixing, I still can't tell you his name, and that's really unfortunate. I think I'll be able to print it on the album, though, so when you get it, you'll be able to see who it was. He's mixed one of my favourite albums of all time, and he's not, as I mentioned before, he's not one of these kind of mega producers, and he's not any of these things. He's just a kind of... he was an extraordinarily well-known artist who kind of went into seclusion, and so and that was kind of the end of his artistic career, and now he's just doing odds and sods, and so I thought he would be up for it, and he definitely is up for it. And obviously it's satellite to me. It's not in my studio, it's in Ireland, which is nowhere near me. And so what happens is that we get on Skype every day, every night, from midnight to 5 a.m. and we talk about the mix. He plays it to me, you can play it. Pro Tools have something called Avid Share, so you can actually share the Pro Tools session, so I can see the session playing live as he's mixing it, which is quite cool. Which is really cool, actually, because that didn't exist before, and so that's like a godsend for people who are. Well, I'm an atheist. It's a send for people who are in my position. And I wanted to kind of. I was going to say something completely different then, but what I wanted to say was that I wanted this album to be creative with the mix, because you've heard the songs, a lot of the songs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the 13 songs. The ones are Sync, Lullaby Taking Me Away, Sailboat, Satellites, and Control Delete, which is the oldest song on the album. Those songs. And so, I didn't just, you had the demo versions of them. Even the music video version of Sync was actually a demo version that was recorded on a laptop, so it wasn't particularly good. And I wanted to do something a little bit more progressive with the mix. I'm saying this as though I'm doing it, I'm not, but, a lot of these songs were dreams and came from dreamscapes and or daydreams, and were specific things. They weren't just plucked out as I'm trying to write lyrics for a song. Because what I do in the more recent projects, other than the Quiet One, is that I kind of make a song, and then I think of lyrics to go around the music that you write. But with Quiet One, the lyrics came first, which is very rare for me. That never happens. Normally I write kind of chord progressions or find catchy little hooks on the guitar, and then try and build up a song around it. Both ways work really well. There's no better way of writing music. It's just different ways of writing music. And with the mix, I wanted to really highlight excuse me, I wanted to really highlight the fact that some of the songs were dreams, because some of them weren't dreams. And so there's a distinct difference between the ones that are dreams. And I'll tell you a few. Sync, Satellites, and Sailboat of the ones that and Take Me Away were dreams. They're the only dreams. So what we did was something really cool, and we only discovered that we could do this last night at about 3 a.m. So, sorry, I'm just going to walk you outside because it's getting quite hot in this. This is what happens. I have a Studer tape machine, an A tape machine, and it's so hot that I always worry that the tapes are going to burn out, although that's never happened. I don't think it's ever happened anywhere. But, what was I saying? So, yeah, as I said, he was mixing some stuff live last night, really late last night, and I was listening to it, and he put on, as I mentioned, there's some... I did a lot of the reverbs are real reverbs for me, actually playing the audio out into a space, an actual space, for instance, a church. And then what we do is we subtract the original source audio by phasing it. So, I can't explain this easily. I'm just going to have to get a little bit technical. I'm really sorry. Okay, basically, if I said this, A, B, C, D... If I copied me saying that A, B, C, D and put it over myself saying A, B, C, D, it would sound twice as loud, because there's two of me saying A, B, C, D. Your voice is made up of vibrations, it's waves, and those sound waves can be inverted, and that's called phase. Phase is the kind of polarity of the waves of your voice, and you can flip that, you can invert it. So if I did 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D, whatever it was, and put a copy of exactly that over the top of me saying that, and then phase inverted it, it would be silent, because the waves would cancel out the other waves. So what was happening was that I took this, I took my setup to a church, 2 or 3 places, but 2 of them were churches, and one church gets used more than the other one because it just sounded so big and rich. And what happens, so say for instance I say or any, and it doesn't matter what lyrics. I could just say, what's one of the more recent ones? I can tell that you're no longer here with me. So I play that out, and I'm playing it out of speakers. So what's happening is that audio is getting sent from my Pro Tools rig out of speakers into a big church where it's being picked up by 2 microphones that I'm re-recording back into my Pro Tools rig. So what I have then is the original thing that I sent out, and then the reply, if you will, of the church sound. But that church sound also includes the original audio, because of course I'm sending out audio, and not only are you getting the church's sound of that audio being played in the church, but you're getting the original source sound. So all you have to do is put the source, the original source, over the reverb sound, and then phase cancel it, and then you just get the reverb, which is really cool. And I don't know if it's ever been done. It's really technical. Well, it actually sounded quite simple when I said it like that, but I've never heard it being done. Anyway, that was really cool. It sounds amazing doing that. But we came up with something, probably the coolest effect that's ever been created. And it's one of those effects I've been creating a lot of guitar patents and lots of from iPad software for guitar to entire guitar systems. Been very guitar over the last 2 or 3 months with a couple of engineer guys that I've known for a long time, and we've patented it and sold one of them, it was a lot of money, which was really helpful because I could do with the money at the moment, because it's, doing this kind of stuff is, you don't get paid very well from making your own music. You really don't. And so that was really handy. And I've got 3 or 4 more of those that I can sell as well. But I want the right people to come to me, and they will. I'm extraordinarily confident about the fact that they will. But that's a side topic. But this effect. So I talked yesterday in yesterday's audio blog about an echo. Sorry, an echo. So if I just said if you imagine the Grand Canyon, yelling into the Grand Canyon, echo, it would go, echo, echo, echo. Each time it would get duller or more transparent. It depends where you're doing it. Each repeat would be slightly different, altered, because it's essentially an incredibly big distance between you and the source of the repeat. So that in sound design is called delay, because there's a delay between the source and the actual delay. So you could say onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia, like that. And the second and third onomatopoeias are delays. They're called delays. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could get that church sound as the delay? And I thought back to the very first sound design flurry that I had before university, before that stuff, which was me sat with oh my god, I can't remember the name of it. It was a 2-track tape recorder, cassette tape recorder that I used to record demos on. And I remember doing something really interesting with it, which was that I could delay. They had 2 channels, A and B, and I remember that I could literally, by moving and pulling the tape, I could delay the right channel to create a delay effect. So the A channel was playing ever so slightly quicker than the B channel. And so I thought, my tape machine could do that. So yesterday what we were doing was we were sending that church reverb into my Studer, which is just a big, you have to look them up. I don't know how to explain it. It's massive silver Goliath of a tape machine. It's reel to reel. It's not cassette tape, obviously. It's actual reel. And what we did is that I spliced a new bit of tape, and then played on the A channel the original the source in, and then I recorded the reverb in on the B channel. And then what I did with the B channel is that I spliced the tape again at the beginning, added a tiny bit of new tape just with actual tape to the beginning of the tape, so that tape is delayed slightly. This is getting complicated again. It's without you in front of me, it's quite difficult to explain this. But what it meant is that I'm getting the reverb as a delay. So it's going from hello. It didn't, at no point does the Quiet One album have hello in it, but it goes hello, and then the next delay you have is a reverbed delay, one actually from that church. So it's a kind of it's a reverb with a pre-delay, but you don't have that. That's not, well, okay, it is doable in something like Pro Tools, but this just sounded so cool because you have the source, and then as the next thing you hear, the echoes are the source from the church, which is just really weird. You have to hear it. It just sounds so cool. And so yesterday we ran the entire main vocal of Sync, Take Me Away, Sailboat, Satellites, and White all through the studio. That took me from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. I was here. Actually, no, I got back at like 7 a.m. So I was here longer than that. But it was just, it's that kind of exploration that you can't get inside a laptop. I mean, this is actual tape, and on that actual tape is a microphone in a church listening back to a vocal that was recorded in a studio. You can't do that in a laptop. You can't do that on Pro Tools. It's something that you have to do in, I don't know, you just have to be in the zone to be that creative to try those things. And it's just so interesting because it's a sound that I genuinely don't think has ever existed. Okay, maybe back in the Beatles' time, if you look back at the kind of original Help albums and things like that, they had some really creative effects. I'm not sure this one was ever one of them, but they were doing some really innovative stuff at the time. I really, really wanted to push the envelope with the creativity of these mixes. And not to get it to a point where it sounds like some weird ambient music that would sound good on a chill-out CD that's just so reverbed that it sounds weird. But I wanted it to infuse the places that these songs came from, and the best way to do that was to literally use them. And I couldn't do this in another way. There is another way that you can get a space, and I've used it before. There's a company from Tel Aviv who makes something called it's the IR, I think it is, and it uses something called an impulse response. So what you do is you go to a church or a cathedral, wherever you want. Actually, it could be a basement, doesn't matter. Wherever you like the sound. Sorry, my voice is broken. Literally just then, my voice broken and just, oh my god, it keeps dropping down. Oh my god. Oh my fuck. No, I'm joking. It's back. I really don't want to hit puberty. That would ruin me. But you can go to a church or anywhere you want, and you put your Pro Tools rig or Logic, whatever the fuck you're using, doesn't matter. Just put it on a laptop somewhere, and then you need speakers, and you can play out those speakers. And if I do it next to this cymbal, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's actually creating a vibration. And so what you do is you put 4 mics around. I think the minimum you can use is 2, so it's stereo. But you put 4 mics around, some behind you, some in front of you, very carefully measured. I've done this twice, so it's not something that I use very often. But if I really, really want a very specific sound, then I will have to do this. But I don't want that for this album. It's just not necessary, and it won't sound better than what we're doing already anyway. But so you play out that kind of, it almost sounds like Morse, and record it back in, and then take away the Morse, and you have that sound. And you can use that sound in whatever you want, and then you can play back whatever you want through that impulse response, and you will have, for instance, a guitar literally playing from that cathedral or church or wherever you were. So there are really creative ways of mixing, and I don't know, last night it was just so interesting because I have this kind of thing in my head about modern mixing engineers, which is that they take all the shortcuts, which is true because I've met, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 mixing engineers, some who currently have number one, some who haven't done very well for the last 10 years, you know, all sorts of people. And actually I don't know anyone who has a current number one. I don't think Michael Jackson's Escape is trending at number 1 yet. I don't know. But anyway, I know people have had Grammy award-winning mixing engineers, and they use Logic, and they use, which is a DAW. They use Pro Tools, and they use Reason, which is a really big thing at the moment. I don't know why. And they just take all the shortcuts, because what you can do in one of those programs is you can kind of record your guitar in, and then on that guitar you can load up something called a plug-in, and then in that plug-in you can put an effect on that guitar, and from a preset that someone else has made. You haven't even been asked to do it yourself. Or you can, use something like BFD, which Two Down used to use. I can't remember the last time we used it. It was a long time ago. But you can get up a kind of drum, I don't know what you call them, workstation, so you can have a fake drum kit sound. Or I'm doing this full time now, and so I thought, why don't I invest everything I have into doing every single song? Because, as I've said before, why do something that's 4 out of 10 when you can do it 10 out of 10? And if it takes 2 more hours to get a real drum sound, or if it takes 6 more days to get a drum sound, because we're doing an album for a game with a band called Group 916 at the moment, and I've only just finished tracking. In France, I was there for 2 days, and then now there's 3 of them still in France. No, not still. They came back. Well, they came back today actually, but that was a 6-day drum recording session at a kind of small studio, but they had a really nice floor. They had a wooden floor and a really big, small studio control room, but big live room, and had a really nice wooden floor, so we thought we'd track it there. And it's the first time that I want to really push the boundaries of what I'm doing, because why not? This is the only chance I've got to get these songs out there, and why would I take a shortcut? People ask me 10 times a day maybe in the moment. That doesn't seem like much, but when you're on the receiving end of it, it's quite a lot. When is the Quiet On album coming out? Well, it's being mixed now, which is always a really good sign, because I'll never believe an album is finished until I can actually hold it in my hands and play it in my car or my, whatever. But I don't want to jeopardize this one. Just this one is really important. People have those kind of seminal albums and their debut albums, and from the people I've played it to so far, this is a big one. This is the most important album that I've made, definitely hands down to date, and maybe in the future as well. This album gets a lot off my chest. As I said, one of the songs, Control Delete, is 11 years old. That's a long time to not have an official recording of a song. It's changed a little bit since. I think we did 3 or 4 live versions of it a long time ago with 2 different bands. I think Two Down did a version of it as well. That charity thing at the Foundry. But I just want this one to be perfect. So from the recording process to the mixing process to mastering, it's getting mastered at Abbey Road, and I'm actually going there I've been there a lot recently, but I'm actually going there for a mastering session, which they don't normally allow you to sit in on a mastering session, but I know the guy who's mastered just like loads of my favourite albums as well, so I trust him, and I want to be there just to make sure that it's perfect, because I'll talk about mastering tomorrow, I think, in that little blog, but there's a science to mastering. It's not a creative element. Mixing is very creative. Mixing, you can add a bit of this, you can add a bit of that, subtract this, multiply this, add reverbs, delays, echoes, whatever you want. You can do so much to a song. You can take a song from sounding absolutely awful to incredible via mixing. But mastering's a science. Mastering is taking the levels of all of your songs on the album and making them cohesive and correct in the UK BBC standards, and then in internationally DES standards. So I normally master to -4, which is slightly quieter. If you listen to a lot of my mastered music, so if you listen to What recently? If you listen to I'm Still Here, that was done at -2, which is, again, quite low, because I think some people are doing it at 0 dB, and I'm doing it at -2. I think Attrition was done at -4 or -6, because I just didn't want it to distort at all. You know, I'll talk about this tomorrow, but this has already been a long one, but there's a whole loudness more which I want to talk to as well, because when you get the Quiet One album, even though it's been mastered, it's not going to sound like, you can take Quiet One out of your car, put in, what did I just listen to? Fucking hell, that was shit. It's called The Hunting Party or something like that, and by Linkin Park, and Jesus Christ, it was awful. It's like I haven't heard something that poorly created in such a long time. It's been a really long time. The last thing I heard that bad was a Billy Bragg album. I just think there's no effort has gone into this at all. It just sounds like demos. It just sounds really fucking awful. I don't know if that's the intention of it, because it just sounds awful. But I will not be, I wouldn't buy it anyway, because I hate it. But anyway, yeah, I'll talk about it tomorrow, because there's a big noise war thing, and I wanted to cover that. But if you put in a modern album and then put in Quiet One, you'd have to turn up the Quiet One album to get it to the place at which that other one was. And that happens with so many of my favourite albums that are quieter than other albums, because this isn't a war. I don't care if I'm quieter than the fucking other people out there. I'd rather have the music sounding as it should be than have the music pounded through your ear holes just so it's loud. And I'm not into that particularly, but I'll talk about that tomorrow. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening, and see you tomorrow. A huge part of the Quiet One sound is obviously the guitar, because more often than not, the tracks have a guitar in them. And bar one song, every song on the album was written on a guitar originally, and then was either repurposed with piano and strings and all that lot. But I wanted to talk a bit about the actual guitar sound, because it's not a standard sound, you know. I took a little bit of time, between October and November last year, really invested some time into finding a sound and a tone that I thought would work well for Quiet One. I experimented a lot of guitars. I'm very lucky because I know someone who runs a guitar shop, so I can sit there for hours on end just kind of testing guitars and recording them with my portable recorder, and then going away, listening to them back, and then seeing if I like this one and this one for different reasons. And funnily enough, I must have tested half of his shop's worth of guitars, which is a lot of guitars, and never really found anything that I thought was great, because what's really frustrating is that electric guitar technology hasn't come on a very long way, and neither has an acoustic guitar. If you think of an acoustic guitar nowadays, other than the fact that they're mass-produced, there's no real difference in the way that they're made. I mean, they've been the same, you know, the way that they're created have been the same for hundreds of years. And if you think of electric guitar, you know, so I have an actual, I can't remember what it's called now. Don't know, I have a guitar from the 60s, and it's literally the same as a modern guitar. It looks more like a Rickenbacker. It's not a Rickenbacker. I can't remember. I think it's called like a Shelley or something strange like that. But it's kind of, the technology just hasn't evolved that much. And you know, electric guitar, the interesting thing about electric guitar is that you can put, you can play a Les Paul, play a riff on a Les Paul, and then play it on a Stratocaster, and if those two guitars have the same pickups in them, it sounds identical. The body of an electric guitar doesn't make any difference to the tone that is picked up, because it all relies on the pickups. There is literally no change at all if it's the same pickups. So that's not the same, by the way, as an acoustic, because the body of an acoustic changes the tone of the acoustic massively, because obviously the hollow body of an acoustic is the place where the vibrations are stored and then resonated, and that shell makes an incredible difference to the sound of a guitar. So I got very used to playing Quiet One songs with my Jaguar HH. I have a custom Fender Jaguar HH. I have a backup one as well from Fender, in case my one ever breaks. And I love my HH. I think it's potentially one of the nicest guitars I've ever owned, and it's not pricey at all. It's nothing like, significant in terms of price and value, and it's not that rare. But, well, the HH was a limited edition, but it's not a rare guitar. A kind of Jaguar would be the same. It's just the fact that the HH is black. I'll tell you what, the Sailboat Live video that I did in the studio, in the old studio, that has a guitar that has a Jaguar HH in it. So if you're wondering what it looks like, that's what it looks like. But that's an electric, and so I thought, I have every type of electric that you can think of, pretty much, from a BC Rich Beast to a Fender Strat, to a Custom Strat, to a Telecaster, to Les Pauls, to SGs. I have everything. I have so many guitars. But I wanted something really unique. And so I phoned a buddy of mine who used to work with a company called Gretsch, and he eventually left and went to Fender. And actually the Fender office is really, in the UK, is really close to where the studio is now, which is quite scary. But anyway, I talked to him about Gretsch guitars, and I said to him, did they make any fairly unique guitars? And he was going back to the kind of Bigsby bridges and things like that, which I have a few Bigsby guitars, and I thought I'm not really keen on that because the tuning, there's always massive tuning issues. They do sound cool, but there is kind of serious tuning issues. And he got me in touch with a friend who currently works at Gretsch, who said to come to their... Shit, I've just trodden on a snail. Ouch, I'm sorry, mate. I'm going to stop pacing up and down. Oh no, I broke his home. Damn. I feel really sad now. I'll try and remember to kind of thank him in the album notes. Oh dear, Derek the snail. What the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, guitars. And so he invited me to, this is not my friend, but my friend got me in contact with someone who said to come down to the factory and have a look at try out some Gretsch's. So I did, and I spent a day there and played some amazing guitars, some really overpriced guitars as well. And I thought, this is great, but I'm not really finding something unique there. And I asked him, what is the most unique guitar that Gretsch used to make or make currently? And it turned out that there's an archtop guitar that they used to make. They do make archtop guitars now, but there was an old discontinued model that they had 6 or 7 of, and its notability comes from the fact that it was the most how can I say this nicely, the worst or the most unpopular guitar that Gretsch ever made. In terms of sales, and the fact that everyone who played it said that they absolutely hated the way that it played. And I played it and absolutely loved it. So I don't really know what happened, but I bought all of them. So I had backups of them, many backups of them, and thought, I'm going to make this work. This is going to be my guitar. I immediately took it's a kind of semi-acoustic hollow body. It's black, and it is really gorgeous looking guitar. It looks like the kind of guitar that Johnny Cash would play, but slightly better than that, obviously. But the one thing that was a big issue is that the Gretsch, at the time, as it was such an unpopular model, they didn't spend too much money on the kind of parts for it. So what I did was got a friend of mine who, there's a UK guitar company called Manson, and so I got him he owes me a few favours, that guy. So I introduced him to a guy a long time ago, and subsequently he now makes his guitars exclusively. So he owes me a favour. So he gave me 9 different types of Manson pickups, which I think they only market a couple of them, but he had some like prototype ones, and so I kept sending my guitar to him, and he kept sending it back with various types of pickups, and I eventually landed on one, and it was a kind of, I don't really know how to explain it. It just sounded like a very soft tone. And I have my guitar, and that's it. It's an archtop Gretsch that's been mutated with some amazing pickups and extra components from Fender, so it's a kind of hybrid guitar now. And it's the perfect guitar for this. It just sounds so unique and strange. It sounds like an acoustic when I want it to, and it sounds like an electric when I want it to. It's just perfect. It's odd. So that runs into my pedal chain, which is a Keeley compressor, Keeley Seafoam, can't remember, something to do with Vulture, which is the like a treble pedal that you can turn up like the high end. But I had them customize that because there was a current that when I got it, there's a kind of very sloped EQ, and what I wanted was a really tight bell-shaped EQ at about 10k, so it really took out the top end, real top end. So I have a custom pedal version of that pedal, and then I have my two effects, one of which is an old, I can't remember what they're called, it's an actual tape delay, which is very, very rare as well, so I don't even know if you can get that. Has a literal bit of tape in it, which is amazing, because I didn't even think that I could find one. I managed to find it on eBay, of all places. And then what's the last pedal? Oh, Boop will know this pedal. It's the Electro Harmonics Cathedral pedal. And Boop will know this pedal, because Boop obviously came down here to help track the album, and he had to hold on for this pedal for about 3 hours, probably, in total, because it has this kind of infinite reverb thing that I really liked for the drone effects on the album. So he was just sat in the studio, literally holding down the pedal for like 10 minutes at a time. It was great. So that's that. And then all of that goes into an original Fender twin reverb, little kind of combi. I don't know what year it is, but I played one recently, and they sound really good, the new ones, but the real thing about the twin reverb is it has an actual spring reverb, literally sat in an envelope in the back of the unit. So it's two springs that basically resonate when they feel vibrations from the unit, and that sound gets introduced back into the signal flow, which creates the reverb. And I just felt like the older versions of it, they are slightly more pricey, but I feel like the spring reverb just had more character, maybe because the springs have been used a bit, but the more recent spring reverb sounds too perfect. And really, spring reverb is the cheapest reverb that you can have, like literally the cheapest. It's two springs, and so it's never going to sound amazing. But for some reason, the newer models of the Fender, the twin reverb, sorry, not deluxe, I have a deluxe as well, but twin reverb, the newer models just sound too perfect, and I don't think that works for what I want. And so that's my guitar setup, and it took a long time, well, not a long time, but since last October to January, February to kind of complete it and make it perfect. And I think that it's a really nice meld of tones with the album, because the album, if you think of a song like Sailboat has a microphone on the actual strings of the guitar, so you're hearing the very fast attack of the guitar, the very cutting string picks, and then you're hearing a SM57 on the left speaker of the Fender Twin Reverb, and then behind that is an R88, which is a stereo ribbon microphone, and that's my setup for everything now, and it's worked really well. Boop and I experimented back then with trying to get the tone, and it's stuck, and that's now my tone, and it's just so gorgeous. I don't know how I did it, but it was completely kind of fluking it and mucking around with bits and pieces that made it what it is. So I hope you enjoy that. I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into that, because I know there's a few guitarists out there, and unfortunately it's not, a distorted tone. It's a very boring tone in terms of what you can do, because obviously you can add effects and add massive distortions, but Quiet One definitely is not that, and I think you know that. So anyway, that's it. Thanks guys, see you in a bit. My industry and the whole kind of sound industry evolved quite quickly over the last 10 years, and it's just become quite a boring place to be, because everyone's doing the same thing, everyone's taking the same shortcuts, and they're all getting the same results, which is pretty bleh. It's not really that interesting. And I don't really want to mention people's names, but I don't like people who represent what they do falsely. For instance, the Foo Fighters. I love the Foo Fighters. I think their music is incredible. But I bought their last album under the influence that it was all created and recorded to tape, and that it was in no way affected by Pro Tools, which definitely was not the case. It was the opposite. It was a Pro Tools album that was run and fed through tape afterwards. And what's really upsetting is the documentary behind it, which I did watch a long time ago, was showing them setting up a tape machine that could only handle stereo tape to begin with, because I know that tape machine. So they could only ever do 2 tracks or whatever they're doing anyway, so it was just used literally for mastering or to run the final mix through, which I believe they did. But it wasn't tracked to tape, and there's such merit in tracking to tape, and I'll get onto that in a minute, but there are a few other bands recently who I've listened to. Linkin Park's new album, The Hunting Party or Hunting Gather, I can't remember what it's called, is allegedly an album recorded to tape with no editing. Absolute nonsense. It's just crap. Not the the album wasn't very interesting at all. It was really quite boring. Really boring, especially for Linkin Park. Well, actually, I say that, they've been really boring for ages. But it just really didn't hold my interest more than about 7 or 8 minutes. Then it got really boring. I did have to listen to the whole thing, unfortunately. But again, that was an album that I went into the DR room and went into that room expecting it to be a to-tape album. Then the guy said, this is marketed as a to-tape album, but this is not a to-tape album. This is a Pro Tools album. Wasn't even mastered today, but again, the stereo feed was just run, what do they call it, dumping to tape, and then exported from tape to the mastering suite. So it's not really anything. And again, I believe if they ever brought out a documentary, they'll show them tracking to tape. It's absolute bollocks, and it's such a shame, because when you track to tape, you can't edit anything. It's the, I don't know, you can't do a single thing. It's quite hard to explain to you without telling you exactly. Like, okay, the amount of editing you can do with music is absolutely astonishing. You can turn a band from sounding like utter shit to top 10 in a couple of days if you're a really good editor, and I know really good editors. But what's the point? I mean, okay, case in point here. This isn't the first time I've tried to do this Quiet One album. This is what I'm trying to get onto. I tried to do this 2 years ago. Few different songs, obviously. A lot of the ones are more recent than that. But no, maybe more than that, 3 or 4 years ago. And it was Logic at the time. I was trying to record to Logic. And I created the entire album. It was called Pressure, Fashions, Diamonds then. And I remember listening to it one day and just falling out of love with it. I just thought, this is really boring. I mean, I wrote this. I'm finding it boring. And it's too perfect. It's too perfect. Like, you know, there are mixes I've done in the past, specifically with that as well, with Pressure, Fashions, Diamond stuff, where I get it to a point where I think, this doesn't sound very good. And then I don't mix it anymore. Because that particular song, at that particular time, didn't need to sound good. It needed to sound raw. It needed to sound fresh and from the heart, not over-edited, compromised, and ejaculated into your fucking ears. And that's what I don't want to do with this. Now, this album was recorded in a really... Oh, wow, I just trod on a mouse. This album was a really... I did this yesterday, actually. I did one of these yesterday, which you may have heard. And halfway through, I trod on a snail. I don't know if you ever heard that one, because I do a couple of versions of these before I upload them. But I trod on a snail called Derek. You may have heard that. But the Quiet One album this time was recorded in a really odd way. I'll explain the process, because I haven't actually explained it yet. So, I don't know what it was. Boop will have to say on Twitter, I think. But Jack came down, sorry. Must not call him Boop now, I'm not doing gaming anymore. Jack came down and to the old studio. And this was after the flood and after the theft and all that stuff. And when he arrived, he kind of walked into a room that had a table in it. And nothing else. Literally nothing else. Had a new carpet. And that was it. And I just remember spending like 2 days with him, basically driving up and down England, getting stuff to create the album. And literally this is 2 days before we scheduled tracking the drums, which were the first things that, well, wasn't the first things that were tracked. I tracked demos first so the drums could be played to them, and then after that replaced all of the original demo stuff. But I can't remember, we travelled a long way to get loads of stuff. We got mics, got Pro Tools HDX rig with, what's this thing called? A C24. We bought UA preamps, Neve preamps, what's that? SSL preamps. Got an Avid Omni Kemper profiler. We got a lot of gear. My bank account was crying its eyes out, really was. And I don't like making it cry. I really don't. I love making it smile. It was a bad week for my bank account. And so we got all of that back. And then, of course, you have to set it up. And remember, I have a degree in this. And I found this tricky. And yet Jack was the one opening up all the computers and putting new chips in and all this amazing stuff. And I don't know what he was doing, but it worked. So good luck to him. He could probably do that as a job. But we were literally recording in a makeshift studio. And that there's a kind of there's an in-studio not fly-on-the-wall thing. Again, that's confusing now. There's an in-studio footage of the recording process. And that was the old studio. And that was kind of... I don't know, it was really exciting at the same time as being quite stressful, because it was so kind of makeshift that was exciting, because it was fresh and I didn't know what was going on, he didn't know what was going on, but somehow we were making it work, and we were playing with tens, hundreds of £1,000s worth of equipment, and it was just kind of like messing around. It was just so weird. It was just, I don't know, it was really good fun. And so that's how it was recorded. It was all recorded in that week, 10 days was it? I think it was something like that. Starting with the drums and then finishing pretty much with the kind of treble guitars. And in that time we did bass, strings and all that stuff. Everything, basically, in that time. And I had the Pro Tools files, and I still have the original ones. It was all recorded in 192 kilohertz. And I remember listening to it and thinking, this needs something. And luckily, I just got my A-class, that sounds like a Mercedes, it's not. It's an A-class Studer tape, which is a stereo. Actually, it's exactly the same one as in the Foo Fighters documentary, believe it or not. Because I rewatched it before I made this, just to make sure that it definitely was a Pro Tools thing and I wasn't lying. And it's exactly the same one that they use. It's a very common Studer tape, as common as they can be, because they obviously don't make them anymore. But so what I did was I ended up, every single track that was in Pro Tools, I ended up sending it through the tape machine to make to give it that kind of authentic tape sound, and to take away the digital element, that perfect digital element, because that was no longer necessary. It's just not something that was needed at all, and I don't like that idea. So I did that, and then I got the tracks back in, and I thought, this is good. Like, it was tracked to the absolute best of my abilities as a musician, as a vocalist, as a songwriter. It's to the best of my abilities, without vibrato, which is very difficult. And please be forgiving when you listen to it, because, okay, some of the vocals aren't perfect. They're not meant to be perfect. It's tape. That's not the idea. And, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, the instruments were all done in that week with Jack. The vocals were done 3 weeks later to tape. So the vocals had literally no editing. So it was, well, up until recently as well, because they only finished like last week, really, because I was adding things to the guy who wanted things mixing, little elements and things like that, or just perfecting things. But it was really difficult. I'm serious. It's, you know, I do vocals. This is kind of what I do. I've been doing it for a long time, and it was the most challenging thing I've done in so long, just getting perfect vocals without editing, because it's just so simple to go into Pro Tools, chop things up, make things perfect, and line things up, and really take away the human element. And I hate that, and it's something I don't want to do anymore. You take away, what I found is that with perfection in production, you lose the human element, and the human element is what makes people listen, and it's what keeps people interested. So yeah, this album isn't perfect, but in a weird way, the songs are perfect to me, because that's as perfect as I can make them. And there's the odd note that's flat, there's the odd note that's sharp, there's the odd note that goes on for too long, there's the odd note that stops too soon, or comes in too quick, comes in too late. It's kind of what tape's about. And anyway, that's the whole process. So the instruments were done to Pro Tools, then moved to tape, then back into Pro Tools, so they're all in Pro Tools. The vocals were done to tape and are left on tape, so that when the instruments are then printed to tape, the instruments will be mixed separately to vocals, and then vocals and tape will be added together, very similarly to how the Beatles did it as well, at the last moment to create that final mix. It's a very exciting way of doing it, because normally you mix the vocals in Pro Tools to the instruments, but that's not the way this is done at all, and this is interesting. So the next bit of news, which hopefully is going to happen tomorrow if I can find a car that's big enough, is I'm going to pick up a J37, which that means absolutely nothing to all of you, but I'm trying to think of a way that this could imagine. Oh, there's a lot of gaming people out there. Imagine buying a AAA game production company. It's like that to me. And it's a similar kind of cost in a different way. But it's not cheap at all. But it's one of those things that I've wanted for so long and had to have. And okay, a J37 is a Studer tape. Again, I have an A. I can't remember what it is now. So I have two of them, but one of them's a slave. But I have another Studer tape, which everything else before was run to. Studer make tape machines, reel-to-reel tapes, not cassette tapes. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about reel-to-reel. And this is a J37. Now, the J37 is important because it's two things. It's completely mono, so there's no stereo element at all. And this is the exact machine that was used to create the Beatles' first record. I say it's the exact machine, it's not the exact one, it's the exact model, is what I mean. And they made such a limited number of them that I'm so lucky to be able to get one, and to get one that works as well, especially at this date in the future. That's mad. So what we're going to do, interestingly, is we're going to run the instrumentation through the stereo Studer, so the A-class Studer. I call it the A-class because I can't remember all the numbers after the A. The A-class Studer. Once they're mixed, the guy in Ireland, who I will eventually name, will send them back to me, and I'll run all the instruments through the Studer tape in stereo. So they have a stereo track that is just all of the instruments. Then my vocals will be run through the J37 in mono. Depending if I want some surrounding vocals, then I have to send them back through the A-class as well. So that's something I've got to think about. But they'll be sent back in mono through the same tape machine that the Beatles used. So this is like, and this all sounds like I'm a massive Beatles fan. I'm not. I liked a couple of their songs. I think they're really good for their time. But no, I'm not a massive Beatles fan. I know people who are, but I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just not. I haven't listened to too much of their stuff. But I know my audio kind of production history. I really do. And I really respect the roots of my industry. And this is the perfect way to finish this album. And then, that's even better than that final bounce with all the instruments and vocals all put in, is that I get to master it at Abbey Road. Which, I don't know if this process could have been better. And I'm not sure if you're even going to get the excitement out of the album at the end, but being blunt, I don't care, because I've never worked on something that I'm so proud of. I don't think I've worked on anything that I'm proud of, but this is kind of me, and it's just perfect. I don't know, for me, I think I've done these songs justice by creating the music in this way, and without compromising it at all, because it can't be compromised. So much you can do with a host platform like Logic or Pro Tools. You can cut up drums to make sure that they're exactly in time. You can tune vocals. You can make a man sound like a robot with tuning, and you can chop and change guitars. You can do all this stuff. And just to not be able to do any of that and be completely helpless and isolated in what you're doing, and it really pushes you to become a better musician. And first time that's happened in a long time. So this is exciting. And the J37 addition to my studio arsenal is just, again, being bluntly, just fucking mentally cool. Because that's something that I just didn't think could ever happen. I'll have to do an introduction video to you to really introduce you to the J37, because she's definitely a she. I have to think of a name. You have to give me a name on Twitter. If you can think of a name for my J37, it's got to be sexy. It's definitely got to be sexy. And I have to go and find tape for it now, as well now, because when I bought the A-Class Studer, the guy gave me like 20 reels, so I was like, that's really cool, because it's actually really pricey. This stuff is not made, well, it is made still, but it's very hard to get hold of. But the mono tape, and it's this different size tape, which is also something really cool, which is actually what I wanted to mention, I'm sorry I'm doing this now, is that the J37 tape is smaller, so it's going to sound like different tape over the stereo tape, so they're going to sound a little bit like they don't fit, which kind of intrigues me as well, because that sounds like it's like a piece of the puzzle that I've had to hammer in, and that disjointedness also pleases my head. That makes this whole... I've not been nice to this music, I've not treated it well, but I think that it's benefited from it. But anyway, yeah, the tape's a different size, and I don't have any, so I need to go and buy some before I pick up the... Well, I don't know if I'll be able to get some before that. I don't know why I'm talking to you about this. How you doing anyway, mate? How's your mum? She alright? Good. Okay. I don't care about your dad. Bye-bye. See you soon. Today is day 13 of the Quiet One mixing process, and while I'm not in the studio mixing it, I'm being kept aware of what's going on. And it's... It seems to me like you're interested in what's going on behind the scenes, and how all of this works, and how unique the process is for Quiet One specifically. And it thrills me now to know that there are 3 mixing engineers having to work on the album, because the desk that they're working on hasn't got something called automatic recall. The desk itself is from the 50s. So it's not actually that old if you consider some of the stuff that was floating around EMI and Abbey Road. But it's still, it's an old bit of kit. And so when you're thinking about balancing and volumes and levels and all that stuff, you can imagine volumes coming up on each of the tracks. That mixing desk is basically broken down into 60-odd individual tracks. So the bass is 1 track, and acoustic guitar is 2 tracks because it's stereo left and right, and drums are about 10 tracks. And there's a whole gamut of tracks that makes up one song. And when you spread them across an analog console like that one, it's a Neve console, in order to balance it, what you can do is set all the faders so they sound good just as a general playthrough, but then for the final mixes you have to do little tweaks and little fader rides. But this desk is of the age where none of that is automatic, so you need more than one person's hands to physically move the faders up and down. And the most prominent fader moves come with the vocal, because there are elements of the vocal that you don't want to hear. For instance, if you've listened to some of my commentaries before, be it gaming, political, music, it doesn't matter, you'll know that the microphone I use is something called a hypersensitive supercardioid for that. And so breaths and for this as well, actually, the iPhone has a it's not hypersensitive, but a sensitive cardioid. But breaths and vocals, the actual words that I'm saying and the breaths in between, are kind of treated at similar volume, because just because of the way that the mic is created. For instance, a ribbon mic, which literally has strips of magnetic ribbon inside it, treats breaths completely differently to the actual words, because the words create a vibration within the ribbon and the breaths don't, so the breaths aren't heard very much. So the massive, well, not the massive, but the main kind of it's not called automation, it's called balancing. And back in the heyday of Abbey Road and EMI and all the studios across the world, Blackbird, all of these studios, they used to be balancing engineers, because recording engineers had nothing to do with the mixing process. They were literally guys who would fix things, they would sort out the tapes, they would rewind, clean, maintain tape machines, and all sorts of stuff, but they weren't the people who did the actual balancing of the songs, the actual mixing of the songs. They were called mixing engineers, or console engineers. And now, nowadays, a recording engineer or a mixing engineer is all very much the same thing. You're expected to know a little bit about everything instead of being a master of one specific topic. And in a way, that's really handy. But in another way, I'm not sure if the expertise is there now. I mean, I wouldn't trust myself mixing on a Neve desk like that, because I have done it a couple of times, but I'm not, trained in the art of mixing on an analog console, because I'm not used to it. I've done it a handful of times, and whereas I've mixed on a completely digital console, I don't know, 2,000 times. So it's it's very different. So that's one thing. But I wanted to give you an idea. I've explained the recording. I've explained some of the instruments for quite a while. And I wanted to explain what you'll hear, because that's almost as important. I've explained the stereo tape machine, and the vocals are going to run through the mono tape machine. But stereo and mono have this weird issue. For instance, a really good example is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is a Beatles song. If you listen to the stereo version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it's kind of nowhere near as powerful as the mono version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And it's because of something called phase. And phase is the bane of my life. It's absolutely horrendous. And it happens to everyone who is recording anything. Phase is a bitch that we must treat respectfully, otherwise it will eat up an entire recording. And I can't explain it. Oh, can I explain it? I can't explain it without you seeing my hands. I've tried to do that before and it doesn't work. But it's, it doesn't have the power that the stereo version of Lucy did. And I'm not about to tell you that the Quiet One album's going to be in mono. Don't worry about that, because that would be horrendous. But that did cross my mind at one point. I thought, fuck this, should we just make this mono? And then I thought, definitely not. But the actual sound, so the instruments were majority of the instruments were recorded in the old studio. And what I want from the sound is something I've never tried to do before, which is to create a audio representation of a band playing the music live. And you really did get that. If you listen to the first Stones album, or the really early Stones, or even things like all the Cure stuff, you listen to, I tweeted about that the other day, if you listen to the Cure self-titled album by the Cure, which is probably one of my favourite albums listening to it again, that album just sounds entirely like a band in a room playing music live, and it absolutely definitely was not that. But it just sounds so much fun and interesting. So what I wanted to do is put the drums at the back, because they are essentially the least important part of any recording that anyone ever does, is drums. They are essentially useless unless you're doing shitty metal music or something where they are important. But they just keep the rhythm, and to be honest, the guitars and vocals do that anyway, really do drive it. And so I want them at the back. I want them completely not turned down, but I want them distant compared to the rest. Then the bass directly in the middle, so it's kind of coming into contact with the bass drum, the kick drum, because they have to work well together, because the bass's frequencies are so low. A kick drum obviously is the lowest possible content that you can outsource from a drum kit, and so those two things really need to have to work well. So there's a lot of ducking, side chaining to make that work well. And all of that is done analog. It's not done digitally, so it's an absolute nightmare doing that. And then the guitar has 3 mics. I've explained it before. It's a ribbon, then a SM57, very, very cheap mic on the actual speaker, directly on the, or just offset from the speaker, and then a mic on the strings. Then we have loads of violins on some, violas, violins, cellos as well, because when Boot came down we did a violin and viola sessions, and then after that I did a cello and a double bass session. Same studio, so it'll all sound very similar, but I'm going to kind of scatter those around so they sound more like a kind of philharmonic than a kind of studio-based orchestra, because philharmonics normally work in a semicircle and they sound best in a semicircle, with the kind of focal point being that central area, which again is very important for this. Vocal will be directly in the middle, obviously. That's very important. And the drum kit will be created so that you're hearing it from the audience perspective. So if you imagine a drum kit in front of you, you're hearing it that way, where the snare is most likely going to be on your right and the lowest tom will be on your left, rather than drummer perspective where it's the opposite, because it never sounds right to me. A lot of bands do that drummer's perspective thing, and I don't like that at all. It sounds really, and all of the software does that. Like if you ever do drum software or even beat software, it always puts it the wrong way around, so you always have to flip it, otherwise it just sounds so unnatural. I hate it, I don't like it at all. Piano is, depending on whether it's higher or lower register, higher right, lower register left. Take Me Away has lower register completely to the left, hard pan to the left, because that was recorded using Neve. So it's literally hard pan left and hard pan right. The higher register of the piano is literally in your right ear, and then the lower register is in your left ear. And again, that's quite interesting because that's an old technique, because the idea of pan is interesting when it comes to mixing, because pan is that little knob. You can get it on those things. You get it in things like Sony Vegas, Logic, even the new Logic 11 has a really weird looking pan thing, but it's still a pan, and you can turn it left and right, so that if you say like I'm talking now and I turned it all the way to the left, I'd be coming out of your left ear only and you wouldn't hear me in your right ear. It sounds very weird. I'm turn all the way to the right and you hear the opposite, I'd be in your right ear. But that never used to exist. Like in the old Neve desks and the SSL desks, it would be hard pan to the left, so you'd only go completely to the left or completely to the right. And remember, the middle doesn't exist. Like, God, that sounds like a zombie thing I've just said. But if you think about what I'm saying about drums and about vocal and about bass all being in the middle, there is no middle. There's no area in the middle. Think about it, what I'm saying. The middle is a psychoacoustic representation of what your brain, how your brain translates those frequencies and those waves. And the middle doesn't exist. You have, say you're listening to it on headphones, you have a left and a right. There's no middle. There's no middle. You don't have a middle ear. It's a complete perception. The middle is completely subject to perception. Some people can't hear the middle. Some people find it very difficult to hear other than left and right. But there is a psychoacoustic element, and there are foundations, mathematical foundations, which mean the phase will inherently create a relationship whereby you'll hear a distinct noise in front of you rather to the sides. And so that's really interesting. Pan is really, really powerful. There's a big debate as to whether you can hear something that's panned slightly to the right because of the way that your brain is made and because it's inherently shit at translating audio. I mean, the brain is really bad at audio. If you compare it to video, where you can see the difference between 4 and 5K, you can see the difference between 1080p and 4K, but you can't tell the difference. It's very, very difficult to tell the difference, even from an MP3 to a WAV. I don't find that difficult, but I know a lot of people who do find that difficult. And you have to train your ears to respect, or not to respect it, but you have to train your ears to hear these things, because if not, then what's the point of creating high quality music if you can't hear it, and your eyes are so more advanced than your hearing is, and it's just a shame, I guess, because there's no way to rectify that as of the technology we have right now. But anyway, that's to give you an idea of the whole idea of the mix is to create a spectral portrait in front of you. That once you've absorbed it all, it would make you feel like you're in that room watching Quiet One play. Because Quiet One is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Obviously, I write all the songs. It was almost entirely me on the album, apart from strings and drums. But live, it's the same Benn guy who does the drums. He's the drummer from 916 as well now. But it's him, drums. I have Steve, violin. I have Andrew, bass. I have my brother, guitar. And then I'm guitar as well. So it's quite cool. And that's something that I've never mentioned before. And that's something that we tricked you with before, because there's a little secret you don't know about me, which is really interesting, because I used to do commentaries for a gaming thing, and we sound similar, we look kind of similar, and I don't know, I'll introduce you one day to the whole project, and you can see. Anyway, thanks guys, I'll see you in the next one. Adios, amigos. There's another side and another sound to Quiet One that maybe you weren't originally expecting, because, of the portfolio of about 30 songs, the album consists of 13, so I had to disregard 17. I think a little bit more than that, maybe a few more than that. I thought there was only 30, but there may be more. Thinking about it now, there's definitely more. But Quiet One is a kind of collection of songs that weren't really purposed specifically, they didn't really have a purpose lyrically, because I never really write lyrics first. There are only a couple of songs on the album that really, or maybe 3 or 4 songs that really kind of are lyrically based, and then built guitars around them. But on the whole, it really is just kind of a load of interesting guitar riffs, all done in a rather interesting tuning. And I think that the way that I managed to glue it all together to make it sound like a really cohesive album, it really does, was lyrically, because there was no other way to do it, because the music is vast in it's not vast instrumentally. The same instruments appear on almost all the songs, but it's like, for instance, there are 2 songs, there's more than that. There's like 4 songs come to mind that wouldn't normally be Quiet One material. The 2 most obvious ones are Follow Me and a song called Come In. And to your ear, when you're listening to them, they have proper drum beats in them. They have lots of things. They're quite heavily instrumentally built songs, and that's very different from the kind of stripped down things, elements that songs like Control and Sync and even Satellites, all of those songs are fairly stripped. But there are 3 or 4 on this album that aren't like that. They are full band songs, because Quiet One is a band. It's 5 of us. I'm saying that like everyone. You don't know any of them, but the whole point is that to play live, obviously I can't do it, because I can't recreate the album faithfully live, unless I have some more musicians. So they're just friends and colleagues and people like that, and who appear in other bands as well, but some of them do anyway. But if we take, for example, the song Come In. Now, Come In uses major chords, which is very, very weird for Quiet One, because Quiet One is so heavily pushed into diminished. Although, this is what my brain does, the most upsetting song to play for me is the last song called White. And again, that song uses, apart from one, all major chords, which is really weird because, okay, if you're not musically trained, then major, in really basic form, sounds happy. There's major and minor chords. Minor chords, obviously, but they are chords which would inherently invoke feelings of pain, trauma, all that kind of really serious chords. A lot of classical music is minor, and minor suits classical so well, and I love writing minor. So, the best example I have is, that's completely discordant, but Sharp Nails is a really good example as well. Sharp Nails is a really good example, of, again, that's discordant, very discordant, but that is minor chords. It's like hopeless chords. So these songs, Follow Me and Come In, are both major songs, and it's so weird to write a major song and think that that's... and these are new songs, both of them brand new songs. In fact, they're probably I think there was a set of 3 songs that I wrote literally the week before I went into the studio, and they're the most recent songs. It was that, it was Come In, Follow Me, and there was another one. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. No, I can't remember. I'll think of it another day. But it's a more recent song. But the way I balanced it out was trying, with Come In specifically, Follow Me is again quite a heavy song to sing. It's not pleasant. None of these songs are pleasant for me. They all, unless they're a dream song, they all tap into a place in my mind that I would rather delete, but for some reason my fucking mind won't let me do it. So it's quite difficult in that sense to sing them. And although it's not specifically about me, they're real. It really touches a nerve, because there was a time in my life, and I'm sure there's time in your life, or there will be a time in your life, where things really, 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 really don't go very well, and you have to kind of think that you're not in the position that you're in, because to think of yourself, or to really accept that you're in the position that you're in, you'd kill yourself. So to kind of think yourself out of a situation, that escapism, that real feeling of like you're an escape artist, that real adrenaline rush to try and get your mind out of that anchor is so vividly important. And that's, again, a lot of this album is dreamscapes, and not all of them are trying to, not many of them actually, not many at all. I think only 2 or 3 songs are written in it, or specifically realise a very bad time. Control Delete's a very good example of a song that was written at an incredibly horrible time for me. Really horrible. I mean, I don't know if I want to talk about this, but I broke my legs and stuff, and that, you may know that anyway, a long, long time ago. But at that time, I was doing horrible things, and people were doing horrible, horrible things to me. And it was that kind of just self-destructive pattern that kind of you can't get out of. It's strange. And but Come In, it talks about something that isn't necessarily what you'd expect from Quiet One. And again, it delivers, instrumentally, a very major, happy platform for what are quite disturbing lyrics. So that was the way that I could use it as an equalizer. The lyrics, in that sense, were the great equalizer, and really level out the fact that, these aren't nice songs, regardless of whether they use a C major chord or not. These aren't songs that you want to kind of, you don't want to know them kind of things. But it's quite hard to explain that, really. But it's very hard to do all of this without you actually hearing the album, because I find this with Z2. I've tried to sit down and do a pre-interview for the next Call of Duty Zombies album I'm doing. And as you know, it's an album that was already created. I lost almost all of it, and I've had to rebuild it from scratch, which I'm actually really glad that I have done, because I've managed to get an amazing drummer in to completely just wreck shit up. It's just mental now, and I just feel it is in a better place than it was before. And the songs aren't, massively different to how they were with the original one, but I think that production-wise, maybe more effort has gone into it, and I think that can only be a good thing. I really do think that can only be a good thing. So anyway, that's it, guys. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. There aren't going to be many more of these, because although you like the behind the scenes, it is really difficult to talk about something that you haven't heard. So I don't know if you're interested in these, but if you are, then I'll try and keep them up. But I can't foresee there's going to be that many more. I mean, I'd like to talk a bit about the artwork and a bit about the release and how that's going to happen, which is soon. But the mix hasn't completely finished yet. That's going to be another 4 or 5 days, I think. Then I'm going to Abbey Road to have it mastered. I'm actually going there, because you can do... Abbey Road offers this online mastering thing, and a really good example of this is that Attrition, that song that I did for I don't know what the fuck the game's called, but there was Titanfall. That song was an online mastering thing with Abbey Road. I was originally going to use a guy called Chris, but I didn't, and then I went and used Abbey Road online, and that master is fairly rubbish compared to the I'm Still Here master, which I think is an incredible master. If you could hear the original track and hear the master, I mean, it's scientifically mastered, mathematically mastered, but it's just... they say that mastering, and very briefly, and I will talk about mastering more, but very briefly, mastering is... There is a science to mastering. There is a mathematical algorithm that... Mastering essentially... Okay, if you think of this, so you've got all of your album mixed. You've got, 15 songs, whatever it is. You've got it already. But you want to take it to a commercial level. And you want it to be commercially accepted on radio, CD, iTunes, wherever. You need to get it mastered. You need to get your tracks mastered. And what mastering does is it ties all the tracks together so that all the tracks flow nicely into each other. They all, and I mean in terms of volume, because the last thing you want to do is go from a track that sounds really quiet to a track that blows your fucking head off. So they all kind of level out with all old vintage gear. Abbey Road do anyway. Normally they just use shit. But I only trust Abbey Road to do it now anyway. I've been there now, and it's... I've been there a few times, but it's really, really gorgeous, and I love it. And although it is a bit of a museum now, and that's kind of a shame, because it was once the place on Earth. Well, it still is the place on Earth. The most famous and probably the best studio on Earth still. And there are loads of studios: Sound City, Soundscape. There's Bush. There's Air Studios now in Brighton, which is really making a name for itself. There's loads of studios, but there are only a couple that really do stand out, and unfortunately Abbey Road is and was one of them, but obviously it's turned into a museum because the artists that were around at that time, I guess, they're old enough to be in a museum as well. But yeah, mastering also makes everything a standard level, DES level, standard DES level, or BBC, depending if you're marketing specifically for the UK and Europe. That's all BBC level. But DEC is the standard level for things. That's also the only thing that can get you mastered by iTunes. Have that little badge when you upload to iTunes, which Zombies 1 had, but Zombies 3 didn't. Because Zombies 3 I mastered. Zombies 3 was something I thought, I'm going to try and master this myself. And actually, it worked remarkably well. However, there were a lot of issues with the mix for Zombies 3, because that wasn't particularly... It all came down to the guitars, because the guitars weren't chunky enough because we were using a software to create the guitars, which is just shit. Software is always awful, and I can always hear software. I can always hear software drums now. I can always hear software guitars. It just sounds awful. I never ever do it now. It's just, that was my one little thing into it. Started doing a song for Diplomat on, I can't remember the fucking, it's like guitar friend, or I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember, guitar something. But I started doing a Diplomat song, then immediately deleted the song because I did not ever want to use software on that again. It's just shit. But it all came down to the fact that, there wasn't a real guitar sound. It was the software trying to emulate a guitar sound really poorly, because they all are really bad at that. And there was not enough beef in it, and it's just very difficult to try and add beef to something that is so thin and just not good. So it just, unfortunately, that was a shame. And I thought that the Z1 guitars were really cool. That was all my Marshall Mode 4 at the time, which was quite interesting. I thought there was a bit of kind of strength to those, and I really liked the sound of that album. That's what I kind of strive for. This is not talking about quite a while now, isn't it? Because I haven't talked about these projects for a while. I will do a separate one about these maybe. And as I said, I did try and do a Zombies 2 interview like 2 weeks ago, but it just didn't go very well. In fact, I have 2 interviews lined up. One this coming Saturday, and then one the Wednesday after. One was with Bright FM, which is a Brighton-based radio station, and the other one is in Croydon somewhere. I can't remember. That's quite a big radio station. They have like 1 point something million viewers on the show that I'm going on to, which is quite interesting. So that's to plug Quiet One, by the way, not to plug Zombies or anything. So, and I'm very lucky to get that. My manager, kind of the guy who's running the session knows my manager a favour, so it's kind of, I'm very lucky and very unprepared for that, because they want me to play a few songs as well, so I'm really unprepared. I was supposed to play Saturday night. A friend of mine has a concert, actually owns a concert hall in Brighton called Comedia, and they do loads of things. I mean, the Foo Fighters play there, like big band Snow Patrol play. It's also a comedy venue. They do loads of stuff. Ricky Gervais and all that lot goes there. And I was going to play for a band that I can't mention their name because I'm specifically involved with them in terms of their keyboards and stuff. I'm not going to say anything else. Oh, now I've given it away. Have I given it away? I don't think I've given it away, because they didn't play anyway. So I don't think it matters. But anyway, that was going to be on Saturday, but I just couldn't do it. Well, no, the whole thing was cancelled, so that's a real shame. So unfortunately, they're doing renovations there, because I wanted to film the I'm doing this Quiet One DVD, not DVD. I keep saying DVD, but it's going to be a downloaded full concert download thing. What I wanted to do, I thought would be really cool, was go to a venue and get like 100, 200 people in and just film it, play literally live through the whole album with the band, and do it. And the Comedia came to mind because it was such a cool place, and it's not massive, it's not really, well, it's big, but it's not like the Albert Hall big. I just thought it'd be really cool to kind of, I don't know, maybe even have the audience on stage, like around us, and play like that, or find somewhere like a warehouse or an abandoned stately home or something, and have, like, invite, if you're in England, come down. I'll try and figure out a place and a date, and if you're around, come down, we'll get food in, get catering in, and just make a kind of day and night of it, because that would be so cool. And to get really amazing lights in, like kind of hanging down, creamy and white lights coming down. I've got a friend of Doonan's has a red 4K camera, or can hire one, I think, actually. Well, anyone can hire one, but she has a specific discount. So that would be really cool as well, and I really look forward to that. So anyway, that's another idea for another day. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and I will see you in the next one. I hope people are going to download these and put these on the internet, because my Soundcloud's running out of space. Anyway, bye. So I wanted to mention a bit about mastering, and specifically, obviously, the Quiet One mastering process, which isn't that standard at all. So without going on a long technical thing. Mastering is a scientific evaluation of your music in the terms of waveforms, and looking at the waveforms and how they present themselves in terms of dynamic range and loudness. And mastering is two things. It's making your music broadcast ready, which means that it's either bringing up the volume, turning down the volume, and limiting and compressing not in that order, the music to make it radio friendly, because you don't want to go from some club track to the next song and it be much quieter, or it be in a completely different kind of like very dull or very bright in comparison. So mastering's that last chance you have to perfect your music for radio, if that's what you're making your music for, which I'm not. That's not what Quiet One is, but I'm just telling you what mastering is. The other thing mastering does is the last chance to make sure all of your tracks flow into each other well. So, cutting the ends, fading them into each other, all that stuff. Which there is a lot of time. I have a lot of time for that because I create albums. So it's very important that the album works, that it works from start to end. And then it's like a story, or if it's not a story, it's a kind of linear passage that is pleasant to take or unpleasant to take. It doesn't have to be pleasant. It doesn't have to work. You can make things feel disjointed, which a lot of the songs are made like that, and I'll explain that in a bit. But that's kind of the broad... Oh, I didn't mention, the other thing that mastering does on that second section that I said about, crossfading tracks, making them flow well, is also making sure the levels are go into each other well, and that the album plays in terms of volume beneficially, because there could be a song that is particularly quiet that leads into a song that's particularly loud, and if those songs are made that way, then that is probably okay. But if they weren't fundamentally created as one quieter and one louder, then maybe you need to enhance one of them or turn down one of them in some way. And that's your final chance to make sure the album's right and to check it. There's a lot of checks, scientific checks as well, like click tests and pin tests. And actually I just invented a new style of mixing which is really unique, called pin mixing, which I'll eventually make a video about. I don't know if I told you that I sold I've now sold 2 out of 5 guitar patents to 2 different companies at the moment, but the next one's really exciting. I think I'll make a separate thing about this, but it's really good. Like, I've had these ideas in my head for ages and made a couple of videos, sent them in to people physically, like DVDs of them, sent them to people, obviously patented them myself first, so they couldn't just nick them. And both of them have been bought. Of the 2 that I've sent to I sent them to about 10 different companies. There was a bidding war over the first one, and the second one was really specific to one company. And they both bought them. And I was just like, this is so weird. I thought this was going to be a thing that just flops. And so I originally did 5, and I've sold 2. And I'd like to do the rest, because it's big, big, big money for me, which is really handy at the moment, because I think there's this misconception about me, which is that I'm wealthy because I talk like this. I'm really, really not at all. And sometimes I'm literally looking at the income that I get from different passages and just wondering, am I going to be able to make it this month? Because it's not that good at all. Like, it's really weird. Like, I can look at my I have an app called Hurt on my phone, obviously Hurt Records, and if I see someone's paid £1 in, it makes me feel good, because I know that, I can buy, like, groceries, not with £1, but, someone literally 2 days ago bought Humanity and the Wolf, and someone bought Forward March today, as well as, like, just tons of other stuff, but because occasionally, for some reason, it just shows it on my phone, and then it goes through, like, 50 more and doesn't show me them, then suddenly just a random one pops up. So I occasionally see the individual ones, and that's really cool to know that people are still buying stuff, because that is a back catalogue, and it seems, I know there's better quality, obviously, which is important to me, but it's still stuff that I'd assume people had by now, but either people are rebuying them in better quality or they've never listened to them, I don't know, but and so many people have bought Zombies 1 it's like, I don't know what's happening. It's like 3 nights. This is completely off topic, by the way, but that's fine, to be honest. 3 nights ago, or was it more than that? 5 nights ago. It was like 2 a.m, and Steve rang me and said, "Have you seen what's happening on Hurt?" I said, "No." And he said, "You better come online and check this out," because he wasn't sure if it was real or if it was kind of spam or something. But I don't know what happened. I don't know if some big YouTuber or someone on Twitter pushed Zombies 1, because I think that night we sold 730 copies of Zombies 1. And I just thought, what's going on? I literally thought it was a scam. I thought it was a scam, but it was all like, half of them were like Spanish, so I thought, is it Jugglewitchy? But I checked his feeds, checked his videos, and I never really understand his videos, so I'm not sure. But I don't think he mentioned, I don't know where it came from, but all of a sudden, I sold just a shitload of albums, and that was just ridiculous, because it's a good price on Hurt for the album. It's a solid price, and people were willing to buy it, and and they stuck around even today. It's like 100 and something sales, and it's gone up from like 20 to 30 sales a day to well over 100 each day, so it's just great. It's really good. That's completely off topic, by the way, so I've got a cold as well, I think, coming on. So getting back onto topic, I just wanted to mention the fact that, even to create the album in physical copies, I've had to pull a lot of strings to get it at a good price, because I couldn't afford the prices they were originally offering me. They wanted like $7,000 to print up 10k copies, and I was just like, that's a lot of money. And so I've managed to find a really unique, they're a company, they're from Surrey, and they do kind of promotional stuff, and they do like the toys in what the fuck's that place called? McDonald's. I don't know what the toys are called, but they have like toys, and all these fast food places do like toys that you can get. I don't know, but that's how it works, and that's what they do. That's specifically what they do. But they managed to get me in contact with the people who they're printers who can also do CDs, and the quality is much better than the ones you can get online. So I thought, why am I willing to pay this money? Well, I wasn't willing to pay that money. Why would I ever pay that money if I could get it much cheaper and much better? So it just seemed really weird. But anyway, that's that. But Quiet One. Now, the mastering process for Quiet One is not like anything else that I've had mastered or have mastered in the past, because it's a very different album on the whole. Obviously, I mean, it's in the name, it's quiet. It's a very quiet album. And that's very hard to master, because one of the things you put on a mastering bus, it's called, is a compressor. And the worst possible thing you can put on a guitar is a compressor, or an acoustic guitar, electric guitar, doesn't matter. It makes them sound absolutely awful, and I hate the sound of compressor on guitar. It just sounds terrible. And of course, in a lot of these songs, it's me and acoustic guitar, some other stuff occasionally as well, but on the whole, it's me and an acoustic guitar. That's a problem, because I don't want them to compress it. So there are other things we're looking into, and Abbey Road is an amazing place to go, because they take real pride in what they do, which is very, very rare now. And I know that I won't have an issue, because, I could go to an online mastering house or go down to Air or somewhere like that, and I'd get a kind of half-assed, fully baked, which means it's really hot. The levels are really hot, very high level thing, and I really don't want that. It's really not what I want at all. And I really want to take a more creative, although it's a scientific approach, like I said in the last one, I want to take the time and make it a creative endeavour, because there are some classic albums in the past that probably wouldn't have been seminal albums if they were mastered scientifically. The fact that they weren't quite as loud and they had some dynamic range made those albums so pleasant to listen to. And for instance, there's a song on my album called Save Me, and it probably is one of my favourites. I love all the songs on the album, obviously they wouldn't be on there if not, but it's the one I love playing live, and there's a couple of things about the song that I wanted to cover. The first things are the vocals. Now, I've mentioned the fact that there's minimal vibrato on any vocals. I pushed myself not to add vibrato, and it's almost impossible to sing like that live. But I wanted to do it. It was an adventure, and I'm glad I did it. Problem is, it makes you sound like you're... I don't know if I want to say that, because now you're going to think that that's... I don't know. It just sounds like... Because it's so... It's not perfect, but it's... Because there's no vibrato, you just assume that they're cheating, or I'm cheating, and it's not. It's just... It's actually not that hard to do. It's just very difficult to do it live. When you're in a studio, you've got time, you can just keep redoing the notes until they're pretty much perfect. Or if they're not perfect, whatever you want, really. But this song saved me. It goes from having the quietest possible element, which is the intro and verses and the outro, which is a drone guitar, which Boop played, literally. And a very quiet... It's my Gresh, this custom Gresh I was talking about before. Very, very quietly, using my thumb to play it. Literally just the thumb, not picking it, nothing. And it has this kind of very unusual element that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But it sounds amazing. I just love the song. I think it's just awesome. It's so fun to play live. And it's so fun to play live because it goes from the very quietest possible part of the album to probably one of the loudest parts of the album in a second. And I want that bang, which is the chorus, I want that big bang to be big. What I mean by that is that when you master, what happens is they lift the level of the quiet bit to make it more radio friendly or maybe album friendly. And I don't want that. That's not what I want at all. You know, they can EQ it if they want, but I don't want them to raise and compress the levels because that big dynamic blast in the chorus kind of gets lost. And I want it to be one of those things that you play in your car, you turn it up to 30 or 40, and it just freaks you the fuck out when it happens because you're not thinking about it. Now, interestingly for that, what I did was I took... at the time, a very makeshift band, which was 4 of us at the time. Well, 2 of those people are no longer in the Quiet One group thing. There's 5 of us now. But I took them to rehearsal studios in a place called Peace Pottage, and we played the album through. And I recorded it on my handy recorder thing, and I used some actual mics. And what I really, really wanted to do was to make sure the album sounded as dynamic as when we played live. Because that's kind of the point, is playing live. And what's the point in making something just sound better or louder than it would be when you play live just because it's on an album? It just makes no sense to me. I hate the idea of... There's this term, don't play with shit, which is actually relevant. I don't know why I just said that, because actually it's not... One of the only places it's not relevant is this conversation that I'm trying to have with you. But, okay, don't play with shit means don't bother trying to edit, or... It's one of the reasons I didn't want to do Tragedy of Time anymore. Don't play with shit. Just, why be 4 out of 10 when you can be 11 out of 10? That's that. But that's nothing to do with what I'm just talking about. I don't know why I even said that. What was I just saying? Oh yeah, why? Yeah, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at. That's a better cliche to use. That's kind of what I'm getting at, and I don't want my album to be compromised at all. This is so important to me. It's taken a long time to get here. As I said, the oldest song was 11 years old, but I've really been focusing on this album for the last year and a half. It's a long time to be doing an album. And, you know, the places that some of the vocals and some of the guitars are recorded mean a lot to me. And, you know, it's just so important that you get to hear it how I wanted you to hear it. And I just want it to be an album that doesn't conform to the rest of the fucking factory warehouse of albums that exist, because it is literally manufacturing the entire music industry. is manufacturing, and it's so annoying. I'm sorry to use a too down name of a song, but it's really true. And that whole song is about the fact that the kind of system of our industry is fucking choking the evolution of our industry. The system itself is ruining it. It's literally become one of those kind of conveyor belts of... Do you remember, like, I can't remember what film that is. Conveyor belt of mannequins that all look the same and just have different coloured wigs. I can't remember what film that is. It's really interesting. I was thinking of Metropolis then. It's one of the best films ever made, I think. That's like, is it 1900? It's something really old. It's some really old film. Don't know why that just came into my mind, but anyway, yeah, the mastering process is so inherently important, and I want to get it right. So I'm going to Abbey Road. I'm taking Boop as well, which is going to be exciting because he's not really a kind of audio enthusiast, but I need someone to hold the camera, which would be nice, and to take some shots inside Abbey Road to actually let you see something. And B, it's a once in a lifetime event, you know. Abbey Road is kind of... I keep mentioning Abbey Road like I'm best friends with them. I'm really not. But I mean, I love them, but I'm not, you know, very, very friendly. I'm on very good term. I'm on good terms with them, but not, you know, first name terms and all that stuff. But it's sad because it's kind of a museum now. But it's a museum for a reason. It's a museum because so many inherently important works of art were created there. And I want mine to be... And they're nowhere near. It's nowhere near like a Beatles record or something, but I want it to have had the best upbringing possible, like you have for your kids. You know, you want the best for them. I want the best for my child. So looking at all the best schools and that stuff, and it's kind of the same for the album. I want it to have what I think it deserves, and that would be Abbey Road, and it would be their mastering suite, which is the best on earth. It really is the best on earth, and the mastering engineers, which are the best on earth, and no, I don't know. And I want him to come. I want Boop to come because it's important. And you know, Boop was there right at the beginning. He's been there, not 11 years, but he was there from the beginning. When I knew it was going to be called Songs by Benn, he was there. Quiet One, he was there. He recorded 90% of the album. So you can thank him for literally recording, setting up mics, moving mics, working the Pro Tools rig. He did all of that stuff. And that's a lot of stuff to do for someone who really doesn't know audio. He, within 2 days, was as efficient as I am. I mean, it's really sad because I've studied this for like 7 years. And within like 3 days, he was kind of up to scratch and was really able to work the desks. It's just like, I don't know. It's really weird, man. It's just so odd. And he's so wasted in what he does. I think he has... And I think this of so many people. I just think if they were a bit luckier and a bit more motivated, they could be CEOs. Seriously, these are people who are just wasting their talents, and he is severely talented. He's also a massive cunt, but he is so severely talented with technology. Not just technology, he knows good music. Like, he appreciates good music. I sent him some albums that I wasn't sure if he was going to like, and I think he likes them, and it's quite alternative, and I think it's good music. There's no real thing as good music, but he likes interesting things, you know. He likes Tool. And Tool are a band that are hard to listen to. They're very mathematical and very non-commercial. And sometimes that can be very weary and wearing to listen to. But he finds a certain solace in the fact that it's such an individualistic art, I think, that Tool present. And Maynard's amazing at that stuff. And Boop's right to listen to them and to think that they're good, because there's kind of no one doing it like they were doing. I don't think they're around now. They definitely haven't released anything recently. You know, Boop's wasted, and I don't want him to be wasted. You know, he's very, very good at playing the game. He's probably the best YouTuber I know. And I know all of them. And he's very, very good and completely underrated. And it's just a shame. It really is a shame that he's kind of being wasted. And I wanted the kind of Hurt Records thing. This is really going on a tangent now, but when I created Hurt Records, I thought originally I thought maybe Boop or Lax would want to come on board and help out and give them a salary and all this stuff, and that it doesn't really work giving someone a salary for something like Hurt, because if you think of it like this, in the UK 90% of car salesmen work on commission. You know, if they sell a car, they get a commission from that car. And not just car salesmen, most salesmen work almost entirely on commission. Not very rarely, but not so often are people salaried and then get extra commission tokens. It's almost entirely done on commission, at least in the UK. So I thought it'd be more interesting for Boop to actually try and get people to buy the music, but then there's this thing I don't like, which is pushing my music onto people. Really don't like it, and I'm the worst salesman for my own stuff because I don't know, maybe I'm just not proud of the stuff I've been making until now. Because now I start to feel more proud and more like I want to push my music. I was talking to a guy called Finn from Brighton, who's in quite a big band down there, and he was saying exactly the same. He was a DJ until like 2005, I think. At which point he just picked up a guitar and started writing demos. And he said that after that he wished he'd never ever released anything before that, because it would hurt his image. But at the time it just seemed like the right thing to do. And you know, I'm very proud of things like Origins that was literally created in a day. But I'm not sure that I want that to be the staple and stamp of what I'm capable of, because that was like 7 years ago and it was created in a day. And if you compare any of those songs to the song I'm Still Here or Leaves, which is coming out soon, then you'll kind of realise that it's really not what I'm capable of doing, and there's this kind of whole other world of capability that's only recently become unlocked to me. And time, because this is now my job, this is what I do, is write music, be in the studio, you know, work the studio. I have to give you a tour of the new studio. But write music and do what I love to do, which was always compromised before, because it was timing. It either would play the game or other businesses. I don't know if you ever know that I worked in the jewellery business as well for a long time, and I didn't enjoy that. I've done loads of things. I have done loads of things, and music is the only thing that I've only ever wanted to do. And so this is a real tangent, I'm sorry about this. But the last thing I want to talk about, it probably will be the last one of these audio logs, is the artwork, which is very important as well. And after that, I think we're like 2 weeks away from release, which is exciting. Obviously it's only a physical release, which I've mentioned before, and there'll be more information about that, because unfortunately there's no way of me doing it without people overseas having to pay for shipping. So that's just something that's going to have to happen, because, you know, this is coming out of my pocket, and it's very expensive just to press up the CDs, and then with the added charge of actually sending them, it turns out I'm making next to no money on releasing this album. But fortunately this album wasn't created for the money, but I can't afford to post my stuff to Australia or to Canada, because it doesn't work out that well. It works out that I'm literally in the minus. I think it's only like £3 more to America and stuff, so it's not massively expensive, but there will be no digital version for the time being. It's really not what this is about at all, and it really isn't, because the artwork as well is so beautiful, and it's really nothing to do with that. So anyway guys, thanks for listening, and sorry if that got a bit too far from home, but there you go. I thought I'd make a mini blog quickly because I've got 5 minutes, and there's something I missed out of yesterday's mastering talk. Although it wasn't specifically about mastering, it was more about the vocals. Now, I've told you loads of things about the vocals, the mics, the style of vocal, which is completely void of vibrato, which is very important to the sound, I feel, which is why it was so difficult to track for this. I think I've mentioned it before, but if you listen to the acoustic on tape EP thing, that live thing I did that as a warm-up because I was playing the night after, and I've decided that what I like doing now is putting my name on gigs under different band names and playing in front of an audience that literally has no idea who I am, because I think that's the most honest way of getting feedback, and so far they've all seemed to really enjoy it. So, but the vocals are really important. Oh, sorry, I was going to say about that acoustic on tape thing. I've really got to get my mind sorted out. It's so weird. It just flickers. It's like a butterfly. Seriously, it just flitters around and flutters. It just goes from one thing to the next. The acoustic on tape EP, that was the first. That was recorded about 4 weeks after I finished the vocals for the album, and that was the first time I'd played. There was no rehearsal before that. That was literally me just putting a guitar on my lap and just explaining a bit about the songs, and then trying to play them. And my voice craps out a few times, which is a shame. I find it a shame, but at the same time, it's what happened, so it's the truth, and that's important, you know. I'm not Pavarotti. I mean, I'm really not. I'm not the strongest. Although you don't need to be the strongest singer for this type of music, but I am a strong singer. It's strange. I've been singing for a very long time in as many styles as I can think of, but it's only recently that I've started going back into the kind of scale training and actually training my voice again, which has been so important. And I've lost a lot of the grit that my voice had, which is really good. Actually, it's a good thing, and my voice has benefited from that greatly. Like when I was doing the album, the Quiet One tracking, I was doing scales 8 times a day, locking myself away for 10 minutes at a time and just doing all my scales before I did any takes, so I knew that they'd be pitch perfect and they'd be as perfect as I could get them as a human. And that's quite challenging. I mean, it really is challenging to kind of, especially without vibrato, to sing like that is not anything that... There are African tribes that sing completely without vibrato because they've never heard vibrato, because it's not something that, you know, it was in popular music, and obviously classical music and opera was really came into fashion. But it's just a way of kind of faking the fact that you can hold a note, because you can vibrato around the note, so it's just not really... I mean, it is singing, and that's what you classify as singing now because you're used to it. But I just didn't want it for this album. It just didn't. It never sounded right. That was the original thing. Like on the demos, there's vibrato, and I don't like them. I was listening to the demos because Steve and I are uploading them to Hurt, and I listened to the old ones. I've got to open the old Pro Tools files. I listened to them, and I mean, those demos were literally done first time, one take, and that's it. I mean, it was literally a demo. I think Satellites was done in a school hall somewhere, village hall, sorry. And anyway, it doesn't matter. But I listened to the vocals, and it really doesn't add up. The vocals are too loud. Like if you listen to the Satellites live vocal, that one I did in the old studio, it's too loud. Like the vocal's far too loud for the sound of the guitar, and so, you know, the acoustic on tape EP is far more like the album in the fact that it's that space between... It's like, it's not a whisper, it's beyond a whisper because there's notes, obviously. But it was in this really tricky area that I found it very difficult to sing in, and now I find it very easy to sing in. And I don't know, my voice has benefited from it massively. If you listen to the acoustic on tape EP, and then 3 weeks later listen to the Lonely Soldier, and Lying Here in My Arms live things, it sounds like a different class of singing. It really does, and I just got used to it. I just went into the rehearsal studios, and luckily we're building a rehearsal studio right next door to the studio. This kind of ISA booth room. There's a company who makes something called ISA booth. And they don't normally make big rooms, but they're customizing a room so that I can actually rehearse in there and have a whole band in there, and that literally outside you'll sound like, well, it won't sound like anything. You won't be able to hear a single thing outside. So that's really interesting to me. And but I went to rehearsal studios again in Pease Pottage. I think I mentioned this yesterday, but I just played because at the time I was warming up for some live stuff, and I wanted it to be as good as it could be. And then one of the nights that I came home from the rehearsals, I did that Lonely Soldier thing, and the Lying Here in My Arms, and that was it. And it was kind of just, it just sounds like a different league of singing, and it got back to that league on the album, because that album is really good. Because, I mean, that sounded terrible what I just said. The album's vocals were probably the best that I could bring them. You know, it's strange. And now for the new Two Down album, I've gone back and re-recorded all the vocals because I wasn't happy with how they were sounding, and I wanted them to be completely perfect all the way through. I find it weird now. What I start to do is that we used to create music in a really hip-hop way, Callum and I, which is that we kind of build little blocks of music and then try and fit them together. And now we have a drummer. He kind of lays down the entire track. Then I just play live over the entire track and don't edit it, because what's the point in editing something that live you wouldn't be able to pull off? And I wanted to be as close to the live show as possible, considering we're going to start doing a lot of live shows soon. It's very important that it fits perfectly, and that's a main staple of that whole album. And so when it comes to the vocals, I want to do the entire song in one take, which isn't easy. I mean, it's not easy. It's not something that works first time. Sometimes I have to come back to it the next day and kind of think, well, where am I breathing wrong, or is there a space in which I should be maybe adding a breath or a refrain before singing the next part, because otherwise my voice craps out. Because with Two Down, it's that kind of voice that needs a lot of power, the voice in Two Down, and the Quiet One voice doesn't need that amount of wattage. But the Two Down voice, the voice I have for Two Down, the tone and the volume is very, very loud. And I just want it to be as good as it can be. And in rehearsals now, luckily, because we did rehearsal video a long time ago, it wasn't rehearsal actually, it was a sound check for a live thing that we did that night, later on that night. And it was really irritating because we did like 5 or 6 songs and I uploaded them. And what was really irritating is that in the sound check I didn't have my in-ear monitors, and in the live we had in-ear monitors so I could actually hear what the fuck I sounded like. So I was flat or I was sharp continuously all the way through, and that really irritates me. Even if I listen to it now, it irritates me because I don't sing like that, and it just makes my head melt, and it just annoys me. It really does annoy me when I hear myself letting myself down with the singing, because it doesn't have to be like that. And I'd rather spend a morning doing scales and warming up my voice properly and actually having maybe less grit, kind of subsidizing the grit for a better overall tonality and performance. I think that's far more important. There's kind of 2 voices in Two Down. There's 3 really if you think of the new album, because there's really quiet parts of the new album, then incredibly loud parts. So I kind of go back to the Quiet One voice for some of the really quiet stuff. Then there's this kind of half and half grit voice that I do mainly for choruses, and then there's a full-on scream, which I don't think you've heard my new scream, which is exciting. I know Leaves has my new scream. In fact, the closest that you've heard my new scream is on the Attrition song, when it has the breakdown. Unfortunately, it goes into like a distorted. I can't remember what I was saying that. Otherwise, I could give you the lyrics. I think it's after the chorus. It goes into this kind of semi-distorted thing, and that's my new scream, unfortunately. But you can't really hear it, which is annoying. Yeah, but Leaves is the next. I think it's the next single anyway. It's really good. I love that song. It's very long, Leaves, and it goes really quiet half or like 3/4 of the way through it. Just like the CD's turned off, basically. It's really strange. But I like that kind of dynamic variety, and it's only since we've had a full band to play with it that's been something that I've even thought about, because it used to just be Callum and I, and we just got used to creating loud music, but having that kind of variety in the dynamic range is so important to us. And so yeah, the album vocals for Quiet One, getting back to that, are quiet. I mean, there are 3 songs: Control, Delete, a song called Follow Me. There's more. Come In, which is another song. I think you heard a bit of that. And then Save Me, which all have kind of louder bits in them, or they're louder songs in general because there's drums playing all the way through them or something like that. And the hardest part of that live is the vocals, because I have to steel myself away from going loud, and it's like putting a limit on a performance. It's like capping a performance where it sounds wrong. Now, I made a creative decision to make the album sound a bit awkward. Like, Come In, which is one of my favourite songs on the album, it's about a very, very horrible event that actually happened in my life. It has a vocal going all the way through it that doesn't really fit. It fits in terms of lyrically, it's good. I mean, it's a really solid, it's a great performance, but it's too quiet for the rest of the song. It is too quiet. And I did a loud version, I did a normal version, and I did a quiet version. And then I redid a quiet version because I changed a couple of lyrics. And the quiet one stuck, and every single song has that same quiet effect. Even to the point where it kind of drowns out behind the instruments, because I told you in yesterday's mastering thing, the whole idea of dynamic range was that in those rehearsal sessions that I had, we recorded it with a couple of mics, and I wanted the album to completely recreate that dynamic diversity. So when I was mixing at my end before it went off to be not remixed but more mixed and pin mixed, I was A-Bing, which means comparing it to the live rehearsals, so that I was actually mixing, trying to get the album to sound as dynamically diverse as the live performance, which is not easy to do. I mean, it sounds weird, it sounds not quite right, but that is perfect to me. And the idea of perfection can just fuck off. It's got nothing to do with this project's perfection. There are some songs that I think would have been better songs had they not been mixed as much. You know, not Quiet One songs, but I think that there are songs out there that would have been better if they hadn't been mixed or over-mixed. And you can kill a song by over-mixing it. And so I'm very hesitant to over-mix anything. And so what you're getting is a raw kind of... I don't know. It's really hard to explain. I always do this wrap-up thing where it's quite difficult to explain what I'm talking about. But it is this kind of raw and kind of hindered is quite a good word, hindered way of creating an album, and that's what I wanted to do. And I don't have many more thoughts after this. I just wanted to add the vocal thing because it was important. I don't have many more thoughts after this. It's mainly going to be pertaining to the artwork, the last one, which is very important to me, and a bit about the release itself, and then that's it. And then we've got it, and that's exciting to me. And I hope you're all excited. What I was doing with Steve is we're putting up the old demos on Hurt, basically to get them off the Songs by Benn channel, because Hurt has become a it's got its copyright claim license through with YouTube now. It's got an ID license, so what it means is that YouTube twice a week will go scan videos for our licenses, essentially. Actually, Google does, but you get the idea. And so if anyone hasn't had permission from her and has uploaded her stuff, they automatically get a strike. There's no fucking around, they just get a strike, because we wanted her to be a kind of central hub, to have all of the music in full, like just have no holes barred, full music on her, but to have control of it and to, get a feel for analytics and stuff, so we actually know, who's listening to what people like, and all that stuff is so important. And it's very hard to control that when other people have uploaded your music. And however much I appreciate other people supporting me and what we do, I feel like now is the time to get control, which is fair enough, I think. It's been long enough without it. And now I think not specifically just me, it's my manager now thinks it's very important as well. So we're doing it. And if you do know anyone out there who has my stuff uploaded, then they have to get written permission from her. There's information about that in the FAQ from her, although at the moment I think it says that you can't get permission, which is technically true. But I would just suggest those people just delete it from their channels or re-upload it to another channel where they don't mind getting a strike and the video will just be taken down or whatever. But that's not particularly why we're doing it. I just wanted a central place to have the music. And also the thing is, I don't like 100% of the artwork that people put on those videos is nothing like what I would have put on it. It's just completely not what I'm feeling at all, which is a bit of a shame. And a lot of the time the music either has like clicks in it for some reason, or it's like shitty MP3 or something. So I'm putting out the WAVs of these demos, and I'll be putting out the WAVs of the whole of Zombies 1, Zombies 3, the Extinction album, Attrition, Origins, Heroes Lost. All of them are going up on the Hurt channel, with some nice 4K footage in the background, which would be nice for everyone to look at. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening again, and I'll speak to you in the last one, which might be tonight, I don't know, which will be pertaining to artwork. As I said, I just had a free 5-10 minutes, I don't know how long this is now, but I thought I'd just explain that to you. Anyway, thank you, and bye. The last thing to talk about is the artwork and the release. Two things that are very important, obviously. And being the first physical release that I've had for quite a long time, I wanted to make sure it was done correctly. And I mentioned this a couple of audio logs ago, but I just wanted it to be done to the kind of as well as it could be for the money that I have available. And so it's going to be, they're called digipacks, and that's that kind of cardboard based case, not a jewel case, because I think jewel cases are a bit old fashioned, and I like the fact that they're biodegradable and that it it's recyclable and all that stuff as well. That's pleasing to me. But I think that they feel cool, they smell really cool, and I just think that overall the whole package would work quite well like that. And that's for just the album release, because we've been toying with this idea of after the album release, I just want to get the album out of the way and just get it out there. And then maybe in a month or so's time, maybe a couple of months, do a DVD an album pack. Now, I've mentioned this DVD before, the fact it's going to be downloadable from Hurt, and it will just be footage of me playing live with a small band and a tiny orchestra and things like that. I just thought it'd be really cool to do that. I want to do that. I've been wanting to do that for a long time with different projects, and that would be quite a nice thing to do. I have other news actually at the end of this as well, but I'll mention that in a minute. But it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I think this is the way to do it. So yeah, 2 months after album release, I'm thinking of doing a kind of double pack, Blu-ray and 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit CD, which is the maximum you can have on a CD. Can't even have 24-bit on a CD. CDs are really bad if you think about it. And then in the distant future on Hurt, I'll actually release the album as a digital version in 96K. Maybe even 192K, but I don't even know if anyone would want that, because that's 1.2 gigs on average per song. I think that's a bit much to ask, if I'm honest. So, but at least 96 kilohertz, because I like listening to things in 96. You know, if you've got Bowers and Wilkins system or a Bang & Olufsen, which I have, you can appreciate that stuff. But if you're playing on an iPod or whatever, then don't even bother. Just get an MP3, basically, because you don't need that. So that's the idea. So the actual artwork itself, now, as you know, if you've been following this whole project, a lot of the songs on the album are dreams, and what was always really funny about them was that I was always myself when I was young, and never myself now, which is weird. Like, you think that if you dream, you would dream, I don't know, because I don't do it any other way, but these dreams were specifically me when I was young, experiencing these things, and not me as an adult experiencing these things now. So I did some rough drawings like a year ago now, and I thought, well, this looks really good as an album. Basically, it's a little boy who's standing in front of all of these different dreams and dreamscapes and scenarios. And I did another version of it a month ago now, I think, something like that. Maybe less than that, maybe more, I don't know. With proper, like, you know, card and drawing pencils and colouring pencils and that stuff. But, you know, that's as far as I can take it artistically. I used to do a lot of art and then just didn't do it anymore. And so I'm kind of a bit rusty. So now I've entrusted it to a person who is one of the best artists I've ever met. And it's just like, I just have this feeling that it's going to be really cool. I wanted it to be a bit kind of sketchy, not too perfect, but to really feel like... No, not to feel like you're there, that's wrong. What were we discussing before? It was more about trying to accomplish your kind of mind's eye drawing of what it would be like. You know, if you think of Sync, and you think of what's happening in Sync or in Control, because Control is another song which will change its name. I still haven't picked it. I've got 3 names which Control could be. And Control's kind of like the precursor to Sync. It's the same dream, but there was a bit more that I suddenly remembered one day that happened before the events of Sync, so I cover it in Control. And like, that storyline is quite specific, and so the best way, and the only one that I'll really give away, is the fact that there are rocks on hills, which kind of... They're actually... what are they called? There's a really cool kind of practice that hikers do in the UK. Definitely in Scotland, because I've seen them in Scotland. They're called like cantels or something. I really can't remember. It begins with a C. But when you do a really long hike, what you do is you pick up stones along the way and you put them in your bag, which adds more weight. And then when you get to the place that you wanted to get to, or climb that mountain or that hill that you wanted to get to, you leave a stone there. And what happens is the years go by, and more people do this. And what happens is you get a pile of stones that kind of marks that place that people get to, kind of like the flag on the moon, or putting a flag on Mount Everest, but on a minor scale. And I really liked the impression that gave me, and so instead of drawing people literally turned into stone statues, I used these rocky kind of structures to, not metaphorically, because in my dream it wasn't people like that, it was more like these rocky outcrops just littered around, but I didn't want it to be as blatant as people, because that was never what the dream was. Anyway, yeah, so there's what there'll be is an inlay, a booklet, only a 4-page booklet, but in that booklet will be there's going to be a drawing for sailboats, Sync, satellites, and white. But the white one is both white and come in. They're both linked. Those two dreams are linked as well, like Sync and Control. So that'd be cool, and I really can't wait to have it back. And the front cover is the little boy looking over into an abyss on a kind of cliff edge, looking into this ethereal mist. And I want it to really, I don't know, I think it's going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to the artwork, and I'm getting more into the artwork. Like with the Two Down, with the Two Lost Boys album, I've put so much effort into doing the artwork now. There's this kind of local forest that actually I filmed whenever that vlog thing was a while back, and there's a local forest where the studio is, and I kind of walk over there, and I don't know, it's a really eerie forest. It has a terrible history as well. A lot of people died there, and it's just not a nice place to be in general. It has a very strange, I think it's not haunted or anything, I'm not saying that. Definitely not, because there's no such thing as ghosts or religion or God. But there's such a thing as religion, actually. I apologise for that incredibly futile mistake I just made. But it's a place that kind of sits with me for some reason, so I go there a lot and take a lot of photos, and some of them, on the Hertz website, I saw it the other day, I didn't even know it went up, was the Two Down, part of the artwork for the Two Down album, which is quite cool. It's kind of like blurred, really strange focal points. I've got this old, what's it called? Not a Pentax. It's called a I can't remember what it's called at the top of my head. Don't know. I've got some old camera that it's not even digital. It's really old, and I've had it kind of adapted so that it has better lenses and that it doesn't use film now. It can kind of, it's really strange. It kind of light prints onto this kind of sheet thing, and then I can use that sheet and negative it and actually bring it out, which is quite cool. It's really complicated, but I just really liked the original photos that I took with it, and so I really wanted to keep it the same, but to make it kind of slightly more modern and to actually have photos that weren't square, and that was a big issue. I'm not a photographer, but I was just mucking around with the lens and the focal distance and stuff, and I was getting these really specific defocused areas, and so that became part of the whole kind of idea of the Two Down artwork for the album, which is cool. Anyway, so that's the kind of artwork, and they'll come in a wrapped, plastic thing and all that stuff, and I might throw in some plectrums and stuff like that, well, there isn't a quiet one plectrum, actually. I've got my own plectrum. Oh, actually, no, I do have quite one plectrum, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I do, I just haven't used them yet. They're still in the pack. But the same plectrums as I've used for a long time, just standard plexi plectrums. So I might end up chucking some of them in when they get sent. But it's not actually me who's sending them. I have I've mentioned that before as well. There's the same company that got me into contact with the people who are actually printing the album. They do kind of promotional stuff. I told you they do like toys for fast food chains, and they do free iPods and all this kind of stuff, and they're going to be the people who package the stuff. Well, they're going to be the people who get the albums in the first place. Then if I want plectrums or thank you letters or whatever, or little secrets put in, all that kind of stuff, I'll chuck all that in, but they'll do it all, so I'll let them know like the kind of list of people, because I expect I'm only having, is it 500 printed initially, but 10,000 back order, which is £10,000. So, I never know how this is going to sell. Like, you just don't know. You really don't know. And the good thing is now that I have management, which means that it's kind of more than just me trying to promote this stuff, and I'm not good. I'm outspokenly bad at publicising my own things. I'd rather do these kind of audio vlogs that 20 people hear than go on the radio. But this week I'm going on the radio twice, so that's quite big. Not the world's biggest radio stations, granted. Actually, well, one of them's BBC, which is pretty big. The other one's like 200,000 listeners, I think. But the BBC one's 1.3 million, which is quite big, or 1.1 million, I can't remember. But it's all interesting stuff, and I wouldn't get to do that if I didn't have management, because I don't know any contacts in radio really. I kind of knew a couple of old producers who went to radio and a couple of DJs, but I don't know much about any of that, and it's quite a good platform to promote yourself on. And the BBC thing I'm doing, in a month's time, I'm going back to do a 3-track set as well, and I think I'm going to be playing Sync, White, and Follow Me, just an acoustic version of Follow Me, because Follow Me is a full band track. But that would be really cool, because I didn't think I'd get the chance to do that, and I'd really like to do that. In fact, I was in talks with I said I didn't really go to Abbey Road much and all that stuff. I was in talks with a guy called Lee, who does some of the kind of A&R for it used to be Decca Records, but then he went to Universal, and now he's with I don't even know. He used to be Ninja Tune now. I think he might either still be at Ninja Tune or might be working with Rao at Ambush Reality. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But he said, well, while you're at Abbey Road, their live rooms now, as I said, they're basically like a mausoleum and museums. Why don't you film an acoustic set at Abbey Road? And I thought that was a great idea. I thought that sounds so cool. And so I spoke to the lead, the full-on manager I'd never spoken to before at Abbey Road, and they want £50,000 up front to do a live show at Abbey Road. And there's a village hall down my road who want 50 quid for the night. So I think I might end up going to, maybe not the village hall, but somewhere local rather than Abbey Road, because unbelievably I don't have £50,000 that I can just piss away on an acoustic set at Abbey Road. It's just the front of that. The place is seriously, it's the quietest place you could ever go to, considering it's was a recording studio, the world's most professional and the most eminent recording studio on earth. It's probably the quietest place you could ever imagine now. It's like they have tours twice a day, and other than that, it's literally like an abandoned warehouse. That's what it feels like to me. It's just weird. I mean, there are some rooms like the mastering suites, the online guys get a lot of business, but that's kind of the new side of it. But the actual recording stuff, it just seems so dead. And so I thought, maybe they'll just let me do it. Fuck no, definitely not. Which is unfortunate, because I'd really like to have done that. But who knows? If Quiet One sells 2.5 million copies, which it won't, then I'll go back and do that. Which I won't. So I don't know why I just said that. But that's the problem. I don't know how many it's going to sell. So it could sell, with the publicity behind it, it could sell 8, maybe more than 8 copies. Could you imagine that? Sam will buy one. Warren will buy one. Steve will buy one. Kurt will buy one. Who else will buy one? Oh, Dan will buy one. Iden, he'll buy one. Callum will probably buy one out of pity. And probably my mum will buy one. How many is that? 6? Well, I'm expecting to sell at least 6 copies. So that's really good. And I'll be in the money. Seriously, with 6 copies sold of Quiet One, I'll be able to afford... I could definitely buy a cup of tea with that. That's going to be wicked. Anyway. No, I'm really excited for release. And there's no pre-orders. I'm not going to do a pre-order. It's just going to release. I'll obviously tell you when it's going to release. And then the first 200 people to buy it, they're the people who get it, and then everyone else doesn't get it. We can upload it later onto Hurt, or we'll upload it maybe even immediately onto Hurt. That seems unlikely, but I want people to get the physical copy. It's so important that it's physical, and for a very similar price to the digital version. I think that people would want the physical version. I mean, you've been on this journey with me. You kind of have. I mean, it's been like 2 years. Some people have literally been here since the beginning of it. And you've seen songs change a little bit. You know, you've heard the demos, which I never do. Never give out demos. That's really weird. Like, I don't do that at all. And so that's quite cool. You know, you're slightly behind the scenes, and I like that. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about it. I think that's all I wanted to say about everything. There was one song I was going to mention that's currently called Untitled. And I wanted to briefly mention that, and I'll briefly mention it now just so I get out of the way. I wasn't going to do this, but I just thought I should explain what it is before you hear it. I had a really awkward dream one night. It wasn't sexual. I never have sexual dreams. I don't know if you do. Never. Anyway, I don't know where that came from, but I've got even more awkward now. But it was a really awkward dream, and the whole thing really... It's one of those things you kind of wake up with a cold sweat. One of those dreams. I think I actually did. And it was so different from all these other dreams. It was really specific. Like it was... I mean, Sync has a story, but it was kind of vague in the way that it was presented to me. But this was just like I was there. And it was me as a sniper. I really don't know where this came from, but I was sitting on a kind of cliff top in what I assume was Afghanistan. And I was aiming down the sights at a truck with a guy, like, standing on the back of this truck because his mates had just gone, like, I don't know if his mates or his insurgents, wherever they were just walking down the road. And he was left on this truck. And I was with two other guys, and they were screaming at me to shoot him. It was just, like, the most terrifying thing, and I couldn't do it. I refused point blank to shoot this guy that I had a perfect shot on. I saw him down my sights. I would have killed him one shot, and I refused to do it because I looked at the guy and he looked so similar to me, and it completely humanized what is potentially the most dehuman and morally void part of humanity, which is war. And it was just the most... It was terrifying. It was this, like the most enhanced peer pressure you could imagine. These two people screaming at me to shoot this person, and it all kind of clicked and made sense all of a sudden that this was not the way that this was supposed to be. And I very rarely write songs about war and politics and that idea of kind of paradigm shift, but that's one of them. And so when I was recording it, I wanted it to sound, and you'll know the main riff because it was one of the demos back when we were doing those demo videos. You'll know the kind of the way it goes, but I wanted it to be as awkward as it could be. So it's literally me and a guitar, and it's mixed incorrectly, like it's left as even it's almost anti-mixing to make it not sit properly, to make it feel weird. The lyrics are written to make it feel a bit odd, because the whole thing had this kind of awkward pressure, which I really hope that the track brings, because it's not supposed to be a track that is just easy listening, and none of the tracks really are, but this specifically was one that lyrically, sometimes it doesn't quite rhyme. I'm bending words to try and make them fit, like I'm hammering in the puzzle pieces. And that was so important to that sound of that song. And I wanted to explain it because I know that without the explanation, a lot of people won't hear this. So they'll just think, well, he is shit at lyric writing, because this is just shit. But and maybe I am. I don't think I am. But I don't know. It just had to feel awkward, and I think it does feel awkward. And that was the last thing I wanted to say about the album. Thanks so much for listening to all these audio logs. What I'll do is I'll get Steve, or maybe even I, if I get some time, I'll download them all and put them into one long video and put them up on Hurt or something. Maybe a 2-hour video. I don't even know how long they are altogether. That would be interesting if someone could tell me that. But no, I really appreciate you trying to get a little bit of behind the scenes. And I would do this on video, but I'm really anti-YouTube at the moment. I don't like the idea of YouTube or anything like that at the moment. There's just nothing. I have no motivation to do anything like that, and so this was my way of communicating with you and to keep you informed. And thank you so much, and thank you so much for all your support with Hurt. Like, seriously, without you guys, I just don't know where. Well, I wouldn't be able to do this because of you, because of even the 20 people or 5 people who listen to this. You know, you guys actually make a difference. And even if you aren't buying stuff, the support, that kind of incredible support is just, I just really appreciate it. And I know Callum really appreciates it. I know Steve does. I know all my band members do, from any band. It's just, without you guys, this wouldn't be happening. And so I really appreciate you listening. And we'll have to go for a drink sometime. Not alcoholic, because I don't drink alcohol. But we'll go for a non-alcoholic whiskey. All right. See you in a bit. Oh, enjoy the album. Bye. So there's been a bit of an update for Quiet One, and I said there wouldn't be any more audio blogs, but people really seem to like them, so I thought I'd carry them on, maybe up to release actually, because the closer we get, the more exciting it becomes to me. And a lot's happened this week, and I think it's been 2 weeks since the last audio log. I know you've only had them recently, but it's been quite a while. So what happened is that the first mixes were sent to me, and I've literally today only managed to have time to listen to them, and it's an hour out of my life. But it's it's the first time I've been able to actually put them in a CD player and listen to them. I've been so busy, and I just managed to sit down, put them in my laptop, and kind of listen through on headphones, unfortunately. But I just listened through the whole album, and it is already tenfold better, or 7 to 8-fold better than how my first mix, because I sent that first mix. What I did was, I told you on the last log, or one of the logs, that I got the faders to a level where this kind of sounded good and played all the way through with the faders at a set level. But what this guy does, or this now a 4-man team because of the amount of faders, is they have to manually push the faders, and it's getting printed to tape as that happens. The only issue with these mixes is that there's been so much tape involved now that there's a lot of tape hiss. I'll say that again, a lot of tape hiss, not tape hiss. And that's an issue, because the last thing I want on the album is tape hiss, because it's not very nice. It's almost as bad as digital distortion. And when you stack up tape on tape on tape on tape, this happens. I mean, if you listen to any early records, any early stereo record especially, because stereo is 2 bits of tape, and that's double the amount of tape essentially. It was always far more obvious with stereo. But tape hiss is not something that I want, so I'm trying to negate that issue. And I've also had something really important happen this... was that this week, or was it the end of last? It doesn't matter, it was recently. I've always thought that this album would be mastered at Abbey Road, and it will be mastered at Abbey Road, but I had a guy contact me, and he's one of the world's kind of most underrated mastering engineers. He's done I was looking at his discography today. He's done everyone's Stone Temple Pilots. He's done Damien Rice 9. He did The Fray, How to Save a Life. He's done Pulled Apart by Horses. He's done They Will Know Us by a Trail of Dead. He's done loads of people. The Thrills, Jet, Madonna, Klaxons, Coldplay. He's done pretty much everyone. I mean, it's unbelievable. Is Matthewson. And he's someone who contacted me. I kind of put this agenda out with Universal saying, look, I want this really important mastering engineer, and that I'm looking for someone who is really invested in the project and someone who can do something slightly creative and not quite so scientific. And I spoke to his assistant, who said that there's something that they really want to talk to me about. And it turns out that my album is going to be one of the first albums that's going to be printed in a completely different way. And it could be quite a pioneering thing. I'm going to try and get... It's all to do with magnetic tape. Now, I'm going to try and get my head around it before I try and explain it to you, and I don't quite understand it even yet, because apparently it's really easy to understand if you're sat in the room and they're doing it, but trying to explain this magnetic mastering thing to me was not ideal over Skype. So once I get a grip on what it means, I'll try and explain it to you better. And what I might end up doing, we're doing this run of physical copies, limited edition physical copies, and then eventually I'll release it on whatever, Hurt or iTunes is. I don't know if Steve wants me to do iTunes, I'm not sure. We were so invested in Hurt, and I love Hurt, so I don't think we will do iTunes, I'm not sure. But I might do an Abbey Road Mastered Edition and the Mathewson Mastered Edition. That might be quite cool to do one of each, because then you'll see the difference, and even if you just press the previews, you'll be able to hear the difference, hopefully. And it's so weird to think that there's a difference, because mastering is so scientific. It relies on algorithms and the fact that you're trying to boost your music to a place where it's universally accepted. It's just alien to me that there is a way to make that musical. And apparently this guy reckons he can do it, and he can do it and make me the first person on Earth, apart from he's done 2 test songs, and it was interesting because I heard the test songs and immediately, I heard them the wrong way around. I heard the after the before, if you know what I mean. If you think of a fat person and then a thin person, I saw it the wrong way around. I saw a thin person going to a fat person, and I heard it the wrong way around because it sounded really dull. But it sounds really like it opens up the mix, and it almost feels like it's tangible. It's strange, the song I heard was just 2 Spanish acoustic guitars, and it was this weird thing where it felt like they were popping out a bit, like almost kind of 3D. It didn't make sense, but I don't know if that was just a mix of the song or if that was actually what was happening with the master. But the master seems to do this when all the dynamics start to really crescendo. It just sounded like it was coming towards you. It didn't sound like it was trapped within the confines of stereo, and I don't know how the fuck that happened, because I've been saying for the longest time that music is very stinted. Our ears aren't as good as our eyes, and we can appreciate 4K, that 4K is better than 1080p, and we can appreciate the fact that 1080p is better than standard definition. But in music, it's very hard even to hear the difference between a WAV and an MP3. So, and this just sounded really different. It just sounded completely stereoscopic, almost. Like there's a stereoscopic 3D, which is a way of filming in 3D, and it felt like a kind of audio stereoscopic thing. Is so strange, and even if it's just an experiment to get the album done, the only thing is it's really expensive, and because it's done in this really specific way, and it uses, as I said, a magnetic tape, and magnetic tapes are used at NASA. Were used at NASA. They were very eminent. They were the best type of data transfer devices at one time, and this is original magnetic tape. Although they make it now, they make it in the same way that they did back in the 60s, and that's really unique because I've never held a magnetic tape, so that'd be quite cool. But I don't know, I just wanted to bring that to your attention because there may end up being one of each, or I may use a couple of songs from each, whoever I prefer the masters for. But I thought it was just going to be Abbey Road, that's why I wanted to bring that to your attention, and it might not be. Anyway, unfortunately I have a funeral to go to tomorrow, but this Saturday, today is Thursday now, I'm actually releasing this on the day that today's Wednesday, sorry, and tomorrow's Thursday. I'm releasing this on the day that I'm recording it, hopefully by the time it goes up. And I'll be going on Saturday. We've got, I don't know what day it's going to be between Friday and Monday, but it's going to be Saturday. Callum's coming down, got a few people coming down, Jack's coming down, and they're going to be recording that really cool acoustic set for Two Down, I'm so looking forward to it. I didn't think I'd be looking, because it's the first time you'd have heard Callum play guitar, and that kind of creeps me out as well, because he's getting really good, and it's really quite depressing. And it's just going to be a really cool event. I just want to take the time and make sure we do it right, I guess. But that I'm really looking forward to that. That should be really cool. But anyway, guys, I hope you're all doing well. And we're still looking for a set, by the way, for that. I only say we're still looking for a set because a hexabillion years old, Speed, and what's the last one? I'll Leave Your Soul at the Door really don't translate well into acoustic, and I only know that because we've tried them in the last couple of days just as kind of practice runs. They don't translate very well into acoustic. It's all very well playing them live with a band, but acoustically they don't sound that great. So if you are still invested in becoming the person who wins some of those goodies, then I'm sorry, but if you could just redo. This is kind of like I'm trying to get you to do my playlist. I'm not, and I really liked. There were two playlists. I think one is Sam's and Kurt's original playlist that he sent me a long time ago. They were the two that have been the most recent and the best ones so far, apart from Kurt's wasn't in chronological order, but that doesn't really matter because we'll do the chronology. If you just get the tracks together, we can sort out the exact chronology because we know that, obviously. But yeah, that's really. So I feel like one of these playlists soon will just get it and we'll just stick to that one because I don't want it to be the playlist, because we did come up with a playlist originally, but I don't want that one to be it. I want it to be your decision, and that's so important. But there are some songs that just don't sound good in acoustic. Well, they don't sound bad, but I don't know, just other songs sound better in acoustic. I'd rather focus on those songs. Like Wait For Me is really cool acoustic, and Superman Heart Shot, very good acoustic. Terminal's amazing acoustic. There's some really good songs. Made to Heal's really good. Angel Devil was an acoustic song originally. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to your playlist suggestions, and thanks for listening to the stuff about Quiet One too. See you soon. Bye. So today is the 10th of June, and I received the penultimate mixes today. And they sound amazing. I mean, as an entire work or an album, as individual tracks, they just sound. I think they sound fantastic, and it's just so weird to hear them sound so, so kind of normal and not over the top and edited and just ripped apart. They sound like what I originally sent over, which is kind of depressing in a way because it's costing a lot of money to have these mixed, and the person who's mixing them is a legend, like a living legend, and yet they still kind of sound the same. But that's part of this, you know. I've written 50, 60 albums in my life, maybe something like that. Most of them are released. And I look back at that kind of discography, if you want to call it that, and I reckon like 80% of those, maybe 90% of those were albums that were edited. Made sure that the vocals weren't too long, the vocals all matched up, made sure everything was in tune by redoing it again. Some albums had auto-tune on them as well. Some albums used a Nord Foreman thing, which is kind of sounds like an auto-tune. There's a Two Down song called Hollow Life, which isn't auto-tuned. It sounds like auto-tune, but actually it's a Nord synth that you can run a side-chained vocal through, and you can control the formants of the vocal with a keyboard. So you can... Oh, it's hard to explain, but without changing the tuning, you can change the tonality of the vocal. It's a very odd process, but it sounds amazing. We use that for a lot of Two Down things. Because I really don't like auto-tune. I think it's cheating. I think it's a bit crap on the whole. I can always hear it, and I don't like... Everything sounds like there's an effect called chorus, and everything auto-tune sounds like it's got chorus on it, and I really hate that idea. And so these mixes are sounding kind of like they did when they left the studio, with a couple of exceptions, and the main exception is that human hands have sculpted the way that these mixes work. Literally, fingers have pushed volume faders and tweaked pan knobs and send knobs, aux knobs, to make this album feel alive. And that's the one thing it didn't feel like when I sent it, was in front of you and alive. It felt kind of I don't want to diss my own stuff, but it sounded a bit flat, and that does happen. I mean, especially because for about 2 months I was the only person who'd really listened to it apart from Jack originally. But for 2 months it was kind of just me, and when you listen to the same thing again and again, you do get lazy with it and bored of it in some way. You do get disillusioned, is probably a better word, not bored really, but disillusioned with what you're dealing with. And so to have someone else take it and to sculpt it into something that is the same yet different, it's really hard to explain this, but it is just so different, but using the same parts, and like nothing has changed. Like I told them, I don't want a single effect, I don't want to hear compression, I don't want to hear EQ, and there's no EQ on the album at all. Nothing has been EQ'd. From start to end, I was adamant that I did not want EQ on it, because EQ is a fixer. You use EQ to cut and to boost certain frequencies, and I just, it kind of is the testament of a good recording engineer. And I had a recording engineer for this Quiet One album who probably still doesn't know what recording engineer is, and his name is Jack, and a lot of you may know him, but he's not a recording engineer, but you wouldn't have known that in the session. It was just brilliant. It was like working with a professional recording engineer. He just immediately understood what was going on. He understood phase immediately. He understood Pro Tools immediately and understood mics, which mics to use. Okay, maybe the names he mucked up a few times, which was really irritating afterwards because, it doesn't matter, but the files, if they're named incorrectly with the wrong mic name, I'm going to treat them differently, not affect them, but like kind of treat them in the mix differently, and I had to redo a few things because I suddenly realised that some of the file names are wrong and stuff. It doesn't matter, but the true testament of a good engineer is an engineer who can get the best out of an artist and get the best out of the time and not have to edit it later to make it sound better. And that's just so important to Quiet One. Like, it's not perfect. It's a little fucked up here and there. There are things that don't sound like a Grammy Award-winning album. And I don't give a fuck. For once in my life, I don't give a fuck about that, because it's so important that it's just honest and it's just pure and it's just what happened. Because, you know what, it's kind of like, it's like re-releasing Stephen King's The Shining. But instead of Jack Nicholson, it had Brad Pitt playing the lead character. That's kind of like auto-tuning a vocal, or kind of like cutting drums to make sure they're 100% robotically in time, and things like that. It's suntanning Jack Nicholson. It's giving him bright white teeth and blonde hair, and it's taking away the core values of why I did it, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted no compromises whatsoever. It had to just be what it is, and that's it. And I really hope it's going to stand the testament of time, this album, because it's been a lot of work. I don't know if it will. We'll see. I'm just so proud of it, and I'm just so proud that it sounds as good as it does literally without a single EQ or a single bit. Okay, I was going to say a single bit of compression. It's really interesting. The vocal chain of effects for this album was almost non-existent. It was a microphone, which was a U87, as a Neumann U87, which is kind of a weird choice for a vocal microphone. It's something that I found I loved when I was working up in Moloko Studios about 5 years ago, and we were trying out different mics on this Singer, and we're trying a 414 C4s. What else did we try? Oh, Beta 57. I don't even know why we tried that. Beta 57s, but it kind of nothing really cut through. And I'm not saying the U87 is the best mic in the world. It's a good mic. Like, it's a really good mic. Might not be the best mic in the world. I think the U47 is most normally preferred for vocals. But the 87 just suits my voice. I think it suits it more than the 40. I have both, and I think the 87 is better for my voice. And it goes from that into an SSL Alpha, which is a preamp. It's a SSL preamp, which is a lovely bit of gear. And I actually have an SSL desk coming in 3 months' time, a brand new SSL desk. I've literally only just got my C24 Pro Tools desk, and that's going, and now getting a brand new SSL. Oh, it's just going to be so gorgeous, and there's like 72 channels. I'm really excited. It's massive as well, which should be fun, trying to get it in and out of the new studio. That's going to be fun, because the doorway is like a double door thing, and I'm just really hoping that the specifications of the measurements are exactly the same as they were in the shop, and not an actual shop, in their kind of online. You can kind of build your own, and they give you a kind of phone guy who talks to you about what you need and all this stuff, and I just hope it's the same as they told me, basically, because otherwise I'm gonna have to rip a hole in the wall to get it in. I don't know what I'm talking about that, because that's something else. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the mix. And there's a big problem with the mix, which is that they keep sending me songs, because like 9 of the songs are perfectly fine, with maybe just a couple of really I think I can't name the guy, and I don't think I'll be able to on the album either. It's just such a shame, because he's just a fucking legend. It must be annoying. I know it's annoying the shit out of him, because what's happening is that this is happening. Okay, they have the album on tape. It's 12-track tape, so it gets sent to 12 channels on a Neve, really old Neve desk, and that Neve desk was used in the original EMI building, which was Abbey Road originally, and that was taken out and replaced many times over to get what it is now, and they use SSL now. And this desk is not digital. It's analog, so you have to literally push your fingers to make the faders work. So what's happening is they're sending me. So the last one they sent me was Sailboat, and I thought it was amazing. The mix just sounds as energetic as Sailboat can be. It sounds gorgeous. I think it sounds amazing. But I just wanted the electric guitar in the chorus, not the chorus, the little kind of thematic thing where it goes sailboat, sailboat, that bit. I wanted the electric guitar to just come up a tiny bit, literally a hair. So what happens now is they're working on a song called White. So they have to leave that song, go back to Sailboat, and what that means is they put the Sailboat tape in the tape machine, reel it up, get it to the right playhead, and then actually go back just before the playhead. Then they have to get the desk exactly the same way as it was when they last mixed it. So they write all this stuff down, and they have to get it. It's called a recall. They have to get that analog desk exactly as it was, like with all the pans, with all the volumes, exactly as it was. And then they have to ride the pans manually and the volumes as the track's playing. So that's why there's 3 people, 3 sets of hands. And not only that, but they have to get all of the outboard gear with the exact right parameters and all patched in exactly the right way. And when that's all done, it can take half a day to do that. They literally make that one amendment, stop it, then they bounce it out to me digitally. From the tape machine, it has a stereo out, back to me, and then I hear it and I say, I love it, or I don't like it. And by the time they've had my response, they're on to another song, and that's another half a day's worth of setting up just to mix another song. So I think he's going to be very happy when this little project's over, although apparently he absolutely adores this project. But if I was him, I would be spitting nails at me right now. But we're very close, and tomorrow's the last day, and I've gone from having mix notes of 3 or 4 pages of kind of tiny little things like, I think the cymbals are a bit too loud or a bit too obtrusive here, or the kick's a bit too obtrusive, a bit too soft sometimes, and it's gone from 3 or 4 pages each time to literally 2 points on each track. And we're getting there, and this is it. And then I'm mastering next week. I have the artwork back for the album, which is just stunning. It's it's just perfect. I can't tell you how excited I am to release this. I never get excited about my own music. In fact, you'll never hear me say anything positive about any of my music until the last 3 or 4 months. It's just become... I've become proud of what I'm doing. And it's just so illustriously important to me. And I had another point about not being perfect, and I'm not perfect. I'm not the world's best guitarist. I'm not the world's best singer. I don't know. I'm just not. And I don't know anyone who is, by the way. I don't know who that person is. It doesn't exist. But it's about capturing the emotion of that performance, and I think I'm good at that. I think I'm good at, because I write my own songs and I go to that place in my head. As soon as I start singing a Quiet One song, I'm back at that moment, and it feels like it's tangible to me. Like if it's a dream or if it's an actual moment that happened to me in my life, like come in, I'm back there, and I'm back in an incredibly horrible place. So it's very hard not to sing with just walls of emotion. And I'd rather sing with 100% honesty and raw emotion than be able to pull a high A falsetto for a minute and a half. I don't give a shit about that. And I've been talking to a lot of producers recently. In fact, I was my wife made me listen, not made me, but she played me a song the other day, and I had to look more in depth because I thought something was up with the song, and then it turns out I was right. And there's a song by Lana Del Rey, and I love Lana Del Rey. I think she's the Billie Holiday of our generation. And I hope she doesn't die, though. That would be really bad. But her voice is just so incredible. I just think it's like, that's almost perfect. It's got this kind of massive, it's not even an undertone, it's like being forced in your face, this kind of depression. It's just this unwavering sense of dread that comes from her voice as well. I don't know how she does it. It's incredible. And there's a song called Young and Beautiful, which I don't know where it came from originally, but it was on the Great Gatsby soundtrack, and when I downloaded it off iTunes, it came from the Great Gatsby. And I was almost certain when I was listening to it that this was she either recorded it live in the studio or it was just one take. And I was right, it was one take. I mean, they added little things like extra breaths at the beginning, and they did kind of no editing to it at all, because there's no auto-tune on it, because I can hear auto-tune. Even if someone's trying to hide auto-tune, I can hear it. And although sometimes I get it wrong, because when you sing without vibrato, it sounds like you're auto-tuned, because you can kind of hold a note without vibrato, and that's kind of weird. But this song is just... that's what I'm talking about with I'd rather be raw and emotional than perfect. And, that take that she did was beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful vocal takes ever taken, especially the last 10 seconds. It's just, she kind of goes soft and almost quiet one, and it's kind of, you can kind of touch it. It feels like it's touching your soul almost. And it's very odd and incredible. Really is incredible. I'm making a lot out of this, I know that, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sell this song, by the way, but it's really good. And it was done in one take, and there's no editing, and I just think that fact alone would make me want to buy that song. The fact that this wasn't produced manically, it wasn't auto-tuned the crap out of it and all this stuff, it wasn't any of that stuff. She doesn't like any of that stuff, and her albums aren't like that at all. She really is kind of anti-production. She has the same producer for every album, and she's doing very well from it, and good luck to her, because she is fantastic. And it just encapsulates that feeling so well, and I really hope the Quiet One speaks to you in a way, because there are songs that, I don't know, I don't want to ruin that, actually. I think it will. I did have a question. If you've made it this far, you can answer me on Twitter if you don't mind. 2 questions. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. The first one is, would you like a single really quickly before album release? Because what's going to happen now is that it's going to get mastered. I have the artwork. The artwork's being kind of created for a CD as we speak. So it could be a week until that's done. Then it has to be printed, and that's 2 weeks. So we're at least 2 or 3 weeks away from it being in your hands. So in the meantime, would you like another single from it? I mean, you've heard Sailboats, Satellites and Sync. That's what you've heard. Would you like another single from Quiet One? If you would, you've got the choice of 2. Should I give you a choice of 2 or 3? No, just tell me if you would like a single and I'll pick the one. That was going to be the second question, was which one would you like? But you don't know, so just... I know what the other question was. Would you like a music video or would you like an hour-long documentary? And the documentary is actually more like an interview. It's not really a documentary, although they do call those things documentaries, and I never know why. It's the same price with this production company to do a music video, and the music video will probably be for a song called White, or it's an hour-long, in-depth look, track by track, of the album. So let me know what you would like, and I'll get that underway so that that's ready about the time of release as well, hopefully. That's it. Anyway, I just wanted to keep you up to date because I know a lot of you were appreciating the little audio logs, and I really hope one day that someone puts them all in a video, like literally back to back, even if it just has Quiet One on the screen. I really hope that happens one day because that would be pretty cool. Anyway, guys, thank you very much, and I will see you soon. Bye. So this is the final Quiet One audio log because we're at the end of the process now. Last week, my album was mastered at Abbey Road Studios in London, and it's done. And I've been speaking to people who are going to make the CDs, and because it's only a physical copy, obviously. And did all the copyright boring stuff yesterday, and it's finally done. And I just wanted to spend a moment talking about this last kind of refrain because it just suddenly everything stopped. Like, after the master was done, that's it. You can't do anything else. That's it. It's all locked in, and that's the end. And to go to somewhere like, or to be invited even to somewhere like Abbey Road, because they don't just let anyone in unless you pay an extortionate amount of money, which I don't want to do. You have to be invited there. And to be invited there for an album like this, it was just like a dream come true. I've actually been to Abbey Road before, but to go there as the performer and to go there and be treated like, kind of like a rock star, was kind of cool. And I'm not a rock star at all. I don't even like that idea at all. It's stupid. But it's still nice for people to say nice things about your work, I guess, and they don't have to. They really don't. In fact, the people I worked with in the mastering house are notorious for saying incredibly horrible things directly to people's faces about their music. So in some senses that's really good because they're so frank that you know when something's wrong and you know when something's right, and they seem to think that my album was important. And there's a guy in the background of all of this, someone who I still won't be able to mention even on the album credits, unfortunately, who is a massive inspiration to me in my life, and it was an honour working with him, and I'm working with him on an album called 5 that'll probably come out next year now, and it's not my album, and he thinks that my album is the most important album of the decade. And it's really weird because you look at this person, I look up to this person so much, and for him to say that about my little album is just so, it's just so weird. I don't even understand that, but that was amazing. And, I've only played it to a handful of people. My wife hasn't heard it, my, parents and her parents and our friends and all that lot, and Dune and Callum, my bandmates, Aaron, Andrew, none of them have heard it. It's just the professionals who've heard it at the moment, and me, obviously. And the people who have heard it seem to think that this is really, really important, and that's so interesting because to me, it doesn't feel like an important album. Okay, that came out wrong. Let me rephrase that, because it is actually really important. To me, this doesn't feel like a seminal album. This album is really important to me. It's the most important album to me I've written so far. But I didn't think it would be seminal in terms of, I didn't think other people would understand it or even be interested in it, because a lot of what I'm talking about is so specific, and if you don't understand what I'm talking about, like if you don't understand the concept of come in or the concept of sailboat, you don't know why I'm saying sailboat. You just don't understand it. I'm just talking about a boat, which really doesn't make any sense. But when you understand what that means and where that was and what was going on then, it immediately locks in, and it's just, I don't understand how people are taking anything from this album. That's the other point, because how do they know what I'm talking about unless they're taking their own, which is great, they're taking their own things, but the songs are so specific that I didn't think that could happen. But anyway, the mixing process was really cool. That's the most fun I've ever had mixing anything. It was just because it was just such a weird process, because it was all so quiet. Literally everything was so quiet, and it was just really odd. And I took these songs into the mastering house, and the guy was like, "Are you sure that these are, the right volume?" I was like, "Yep." And so we had to work with essentially very quiet material, making it ever so slightly louder. And every time you turned up the volume, I was like, you got to turn it back down a bit, because it's got to be quiet. Like, the whole purpose of this is that it has dynamic range, and that it's not compressed, and it's not limited, and all of these horrible things that I don't like at all. And, going to Abbey Road, I want to talk about it a little bit more, because it was really important. What I've never noticed before walking past and to Abbey Road is that all of the walls for like 100 metres either side of Abbey Road are covered in signatures. I don't know if this is a new thing or I've just never noticed it, because it just looks so incredible. There's just like signatures everywhere of all these people who've come to see it and all this stuff, and they have to keep repainting the front apparently, because it just fills up immediately with signatures. And obviously you see the crossing that the Beatles used, and you go in the reception, and in fact in the reception I met a few people I used to know, or I still know technically, which is quite nice. And I was kind of escorted by Christian up to the mastering suite, and we spent the morning, we skipped the first song, a song called Save Me, because it's really difficult to master. It's probably the most difficult song on the album hands down the most difficult song on the album to master. So we moved on to the second song, which is a song, the prequel to Sync. And we did that through to Satellites, I think, which is song 6. And then after lunch we did song 7 through to Ending. And then Ending doesn't really have a name now. It used to be a song, then I took away the lyrics because it wasn't perfect with the lyrics, and it was perfect without the lyrics. So I preferred it to be perfect for that one instance. And then we tackled Save Me last, which is track 1, because we knew going in that would be the most difficult and most challenging one. And it really was. And you understand what I mean. It's the dynamic range, because Save Me goes through minus 40 dB, which is quite quiet. If you're playing it on normal speakers, it's quite quiet, to minus 2 dB, which is very, very loud. Well, it's loud, it's like normal level. So it goes from really quiet to immediately very, very loud. And the one comment that I've had so far about the mixing was that it was so unique, because the mixing, as I've explained this before, and I'll explain it one more time briefly, this won't sound like a normal album to you. This isn't going to sound like a I don't know, who do people listen to nowadays? Like One Direction, are they called? Or I'm trying to think of some other shit that people listen to. I don't know, anything in the charts. It's not going to sound like any of that, because it wasn't made like that. It was made using kind of old methods and using the things that got me into this in the first place, using tape and using gorgeous microphones and amazing preamps, and worrying less about making it as so these songs go to number one. I couldn't give a shit if they go to number one. I just hope you love them, and that's it. That really is the kind of ethos behind it, because, like, for instance, all the songs are mixed so that the vocal sits at a pretty much relative position to when I'm playing live. So, for instance, the song Save Me, as we were talking about, song one, it's very, very quiet guitar, and when my vocal comes in, it seems almost a little bit too loud for the guitar, because the guitar is extremely quiet. And then when the chorus comes in, you can barely hear the vocal, because that would happen. That is exactly what would happen live. I mean, I can't explain it better than that. When instruments behind you are loud, you lose the vocal. That's what happens, unless you have massive amounts of compression on your kind of house mixing desk or whatever. It just, I don't want to go into that, but that's the whole idea. You know, I like to mix my albums like that. I've always done that to an extent, because I like the idea of the wall of sound fighting the voice, because the voice, I don't know, I just like that. I can't really explain it better than that. But it is a really interesting mix. Like, the drums don't sound overproduced. They don't even sound polished. They're not polished. I mean, it's just the drums. It's kind of raw with... There's no EQ. There's no compression. There's no anything. All of the reverbs are actual reverbs. They're not... I don't even know if you can call that a reverb. It's the actual place. We went to the actual places and actually got the sounds, the actual reverberations, the IRs from those places. They're not fake reverbs or whatever, you know. There's a really interesting thing in what song is it? Justice, what you've done. Oh, song 2. It's really interesting because in that song I have these vocal things on the floor. I have, who they're made by? They are made by Keeley, Keeley, and they used to be guitar pedals, but I've converted them to fit microphones. And one of them's something called a freeze pedal, so that I can do harmonies live, and one of them's it's a seafoam chorus pedal, but that's just a guitar chorus pedal that I'm using live. So when I was tracking the vocals for song number 2, I made a mistake, which is that when I say justice, I think the third or fourth time, I hit the chorus pedal instead of the reverb pedal, so my voice goes chorused for a second. Then you can hear me switching it off if you listen closely enough. You can actually hear me quickly stamp again to turn it off. So this is not a polished album. There are fuck-ups. I am human, and if those fuck-ups happen live as well, then that's going to happen. And actually, the most important thing about this album is that I'm smiling, because I never smile about the music I make, and it is depressing music. I'm a very positive person, but I get my demons out through the music, and I haven't smiled about music for fucking ages. And I'm so kind of proud of what I've done, and I don't know, I can just say that this is me, because so little other people have actually touched this, and it's really cool. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for your support, because I don't know, I don't know if I could have done this without all of your support. You know, people ask me every day, they ask me like 10 times a day, how's it going, where are you up to? And I love that. Like, I used to find that really annoying, but now, okay, I might not answer everyone, but that fact that people are so excited for it, and that's what I was talking about in one of the earliest audio logs, that excitement that I used to get when listening to albums. Some of you have that, and it's me, for fuck's sake. It's not even a proper person. It's just me. But the fact that you're excited about it gets me excited. That's really cool. And I know a little bit more about the initial CD release. So what I'm going to do is release 200 limited edition cases. So the 200 run at the beginning going to be the first run. If it goes well and those sell, I'll do another 300, and then I don't think I'll do any more. If I do more than that, it's going to have to be 10,000. But I really don't want to do that. I want to do 500 at most, so 200, then a backup of 300. And then think about either doing a stripped down digital version, because I maybe don't want to give them a few songs, because I really wanted the people who have the physical album get all the songs and to get them in lovely quality and get the artwork, most importantly, because the artwork is stunning. And think about it like that, maybe, rather than, I don't want to punish people for using digital means, but I made this album, I always had the idea that this album would be physical, and so digital isn't quite where I wanted it to be. But if that's what it has to be, then that's what it has to be. But I will give them a stripped down version, I think. So it should be less than a fortnight now, I think the guy said. So close. I mean, very close. And there's not going to be a single, I've decided. But I will do some more announcements and things like that, because we are that close now. So get your orders in literally immediately. I'm not saying that because I want your money. I'm saying that because I really want you to be able to have a copy. And I know how Hurt Records works, because we've sold like 42,000 transactions now. So I know how it works a little bit, and I really think that if you want, because there's only 200, if you want one, do it immediately. So I might even do a countdown, maybe on Twitter or somewhere like that, or on YouTube. I haven't really figured it out yet, but if you're not there for that initial push, then you might not get one of the slightly special versions of the album, and you'll have to wait a few weeks till I can get other ones printed. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for everything, and if you have any questions, ask me on Twitter. I'd love to talk about Quiet One and this project and Hurt and all that stuff, and yeah, let me know. Also, all my Benn at Hurt Records email's going to come back soon, because it's been off for like a month and a half because I haven't figured out how to get it on my phone. And the lovely men at Hurt, because there's a few of them, they're going to be doing that for me this week. So I'll be able to answer you on that as well once that's back up. So I haven't been ignoring people. If anyone's been messaging me on that, I apologise. It's just that I haven't had that. So that's it. Anyway, guys, thank you, and I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.